Okay. Okay, that's good. That's great. Actually, I was expecting this, but that's actually really good. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Geez, Jack, did you get the weather? You're wearing your hip waders.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning.
Approval of the agenda. Anybody have any comment about the agenda? Move to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. This is the dual session, I guess you call it. First part of the session will be a discussion with Palmer Gillis about his offering, and we will discuss that, and then we'll have public comments. I should mention at the outset, a lot of you are here, and a lot of you probably want to say something. However, try not to duplicate the person that's in front of you when you're giving public comments, and please keep them short. This is a long meeting. You'll be here forever. And whether you're for it or against it doesn't matter. It just matters that you come up here and give us some information when it's needed. Yeah, I want to turn this over to Bob Thompson to introduce Palmer Gillis. Bob?
Good morning. As you know, Mr. Gillis has properties developing out at Northgate. He's asked to come in as the board of directors about what's going on out there, so give some ideas of possible changes and based on the growth that's happening. As you all know, our membership has been calling to us and sending emails with concerns and questions, so I think this gives us an opportunity to hear directly what's going on from Mr. Gillis. I'll turn it over to Mr. Gillis. If you don't mind going to the microphone, and he's got a whole host of folks with him, and I know you introduced me to each of them, but I didn't remember all their names, sir, so if you don't mind going
I
there.
have trouble remembering my name. First of all, I want to thank you guys for calling this special meeting. This is working okay. I brought with me today, for a factual basis, representatives.
You might have to hold it closer.
Yeah, you can pull it out of the stand too.
Okay, is that better?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks. Awesome. First of all, I want to thank you all for having this meeting, on this meeting this morning. Wish we had better weather. And I'm also appreciative of all the neighborhood coming out to hear the issues that are involved with a medical center at the north gate of Ocean Pines. We believe that we're providing a good service to a neighborhood, and the reason we're here is to provide a good service to the neighborhood. We have, as developers of medical offices for 25 years, we found that having medical offices next to neighborhoods is a great asset to the neighborhood, and it also makes a great transitionary use from highway to neighborhood. I brought with me, and I don't know how to share this because I wasn't expecting this venue, but currently we have a project that we're developing in Easton, which is physically contiguous to neighborhood. In other words, we share a roadway with the University of Maryland Medical Systems and a neighborhood. And the houses are built in a traditional neighborhood development, and we share a roadway where the houses are actually accessed to the back, sharing a road. So that's 150,000 square feet. The neighborhood's been extremely receptive to it. It's an awesome project. It's a good conversion of use. But going back historically, as a kid growing up in Salisbury, I know that's the other county, but I live in this county now. My doctor's office was in a neighborhood on Camden Avenue. So in those days, we would actually have the offices, whether it be a church or a doctor's office, inside the neighborhood. So having doctor's offices blended in with neighborhoods is not a unique thing. What has happened in the last 25 years, and I've experienced this firsthand and been able to watch a profile of change, and we all hate change for the most part. Change can be good. When we first started developing medical offices 25 years ago, it was for Steve and Abby Cooper. They were pediatricians in Salisbury. They wanted 2,500 square feet, and they had looked at a piece of land that would support much more than 2,500 square feet. We found that if we consolidated several offices together, although they were independent practices, they would have more efficiency with the cost of putting the keys in their door. As we've progressed over the years, medical offices themselves have evolved. I mean, just thinking about a cell phone, I'm speaking for myself because I'm old enough. I mean, how many people would have even thought about a cell phone? I wouldn't have. But things have changed and evolved. The tasks today with the Affordable Care Act, whether we like it or don't like it, is to deliver health care services as efficiently as possible and in the neighborhoods, taking it to the people as opposed to the people going to the institution. I am blessed and fortunate to work with some great institutions, whether it's University of Maryland Medical Systems or Peninsula Regional Medical Systems, and AGH, as we have worked with them for years. Their need is different than it was just 5 years ago, and 10 years ago, and 25 years ago. Their need is for electronic medical records. Their need is to be as efficient as possible. Putting electronic medical record systems in a practice is devastating. It's expensive. Insurance compliance costs, they're expensive. They have to have staff that they didn't have to have 5 years, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So the staffing requirements are different in delivery of healthcare services. So what's happening, and you'll see it as our evolution, working, and many of you may be familiar with the practice of Miss Orthopedics. We started working with them in a small office in Salisbury, and they moved to Davis Street. And Davis Street, near next to Wycomico Middle School, you've probably gotten a ticket from the speed camera that's along behind there. I have. That being said, they have a small office, and they added on, renovated, added on over 20 years. They finally were recognizing the fact that their facility they'd outgrown their facility. So their single practice in Salisbury at the Woodbrook Medical Center that we developed is a 34,000 square foot building. That one medical practice. What's happening is that the zoning laws and the regulations don't necessarily keep up with that in different jurisdictions. But you can see, because of that practice's growth over the last 20 years, how the delivery of healthcare, and I'm using that practice because I'm intimately familiar with that practice, has changed in the last 20, 25 years. They also have an office in our complex up in Millsboro, and they have an office in Berlin Professional Center. So the stage I'm trying to present is the need for healthcare delivery. Number one, they need to be efficient, and number two, they need to be near their clients. And I think that a lot of folks that I've talked to, clients, are thankful that there is healthcare, regional class, I can now say, regional class healthcare at their footsteps, at their doorsteps. The issue that we're here for today, and I appreciate everybody coming here today, is how do we get the patients to the facility and future facilities? Because the hospital wants to provide more healthcare facilities for the residents, and I'm not pandering here. I'm saying for the residents, because that's why we're here, is for the residents. So there are several different alternatives to provide access to this facility. One of which came up in a discussion years ago and that was to provide what I call a loop road. And the loop road would provide access to Ocean Park. So we've never asked this question of the board before, in spite of what some of the newspaper articles may have said. We've never made this request. I think you guys knew we were coming here at some future time, but we are now asking this board and the neighborhoods to consider a request to allow access. Now, why should we do that? Well, first of all, public safety is a big concern. So and the traffic patterns are a big concern. And I can't speak for State Highway Administration. They are here today. But I think because they can't answer this question, because I haven't provided the traffic study, but my traffic consultant says that the right-hand turn in and the right-hand turn out that exists today is adequate for the facility that's there and also for future facilities. Again, that's a process that we have to go through with traffic studies, et cetera. What's happening in reality is that the right-hand turn in and the right-hand turn out may work statistically and probability and statistics, but it doesn't work in reality. And what's happening right now is it's a public safety issue. What's happening right now is people are exiting, they're going north on 589, they're coming and they're doing an illegal U-turn, they're turning into shortstop, or I think what's happened, and I think you all have seen this, is they're coming into Ocean Pines, crossing the bridge and doing a U-turn to get access to the traffic. I think those are the traffic patterns that you're seeing today. To go south on 589 as you're exiting. So from that standpoint, one of the reasons the main reason we put this medical facility at Ocean Pines was to serve the largest population base in Worcester County, which is Ocean Pines. And the best way to serve them is to provide direct access, like a cortisone shot that this orthopedics puts in my shoulder every once in a while, is a direct link into the community. I think if you're looking at the alternatives, which is for a resident of Ocean Pines to leave the North Gate and go south on 589, they've got to go down 589, do a U-turn legally, and turn into the facility. And I think that if you're a resident of Ocean Pines, and I've lived here myself in this, if you're a resident of this, you don't have to be inconvenienced with 589. 589 is, as you know, and I know, and I'm not going to try to hide from it, is a traffic issue in August, particularly during the summertime. It's a heavily traveled road. So I think for a convenience and public safety, we need to come up, and I'm asking the board to help me and the community to help with this, an alternative traffic path. I know that there's going to be some comments that are going to be made about access road and property values. I would represent to you, and I believe I can prove that it would not have no negative impact on property values in any way whatsoever. In fact, the project that I point to often, which is 25 miles to the west, which is East Park Professional Center, where I did the same thing with the neighborhoods. The actual residents, Mr. Farrell, who's no longer with us, actually thanked me for putting this project next to his house, physically next to his house. So I think with the convenience that they have, that could be had, I think that there's a lot of reasons that we ought to at least try to keep an open mind and consider this as a public safety issue, as a convenience issue, and something that will allow farther healthcare services to be delivered to Ocean Pines. I've heard some concerns about not wanting to replace the bridge, that they like the bridge should stay as it is. We all know, I think, that bridge somewhere along the line, in my lifetime, Ocean Pines didn't exist. So talk about change. Ocean Pines in itself, to me, is a change. But the bridge itself, I think we all know, doesn't meet a lot of standards. So there's some issues and improvements that need to be happening to the bridge, in addition to including an additional lane on the westbound or the exiting part of that bridge. So that's another thing we need to discuss. There was another discussion I had years ago with the board about the possibility of annexation of, and I know that's not the technical term for a property owners association, but being brought into the property owners association as a dues-paying entity. So there's lots of alternatives, and I'm not here to present one alternative. I'm here to ask the board to consider the one alternative, which is access to Ocean Park. So I'd like, and this is, as a developer, there's lots of alternative uses for that property. As it's zoned right now, it's typically small commercial offices, or in this particular case, medical offices. I only develop, except for a couple industrial exceptions, medical offices. It could be a multifamily affordable housing project. It could be a strip center if the zonings were changed. It could be lots of different things if the zoning were changed. I personally believe, and I can look myself in the mirror every morning knowing that a medical office is a perfect transitionary use from highway to residential. And to prove that point a little bit farther, we've actually set aside 5 acres of that property as a wooded buffer that will stay in preservation forever. Yes, there are some ways to mitigate that. Yes, there are some ways to develop with that with money, and forget the term, to procure replacement forestation, 5 acres. But I think, and we believe, that that's the best buffer for highway medical offices to the neighborhood. There are a few neighbors that are in the direct vicinity. We think we represent a good neighborhood. The facility will be kept up. It'll look good. It pays Worcester County taxes. It provides services. It looks good. The grounds will be kept all the time. It's not going to be a negative to the neighborhood. It'll be an asset. Ironically, when we were meeting with some folks at the medical center at the North Gate a few weeks ago, there was a lady who had an accident in the building. And that lady actually physically ran into the building. Well, as we were sitting there with Rochelle and Dallas and Donnie at that meeting, the irony of this is that because the emergency services access was not clear, the fire truck and the ambulance came in from the north gate and crossed over the lines and came in opposing traffic to get access to the facility. So I couldn't have scripted it better. I mean, it was a situation where the only way that the emergency services, the ambulance and the fire truck and the police could get access to that facility was either to do an illegal turn in there, or as they actually did come in flowing south in the northbound lane, which was the exit. It was not pretty, but again, it was a physical example of how we need to improve access. And as a person who has developed close to 2 million square feet of medical offices in my career, I can stand here today and say to you and the neighborhood that we will be an asset to this community and not a liability. We will not diminish traffic, property values, and the traffic is minimalistic. The traffic that we have at East Park Professional Center, which is 90,000 square feet, physically goes through the neighborhood on Belmont Avenue. It actually goes into the neighborhood. We're not proposing that. So what we're asking for, again, is an open mind and for the benefit of all the community, all the residents of Ocean Pines community, which is the reason why we're here. There's going to be some factual questions that you may want to ask, and I'm not sure from the board, Bob, give me some guidance on this. I'm introducing Donnie and Dallas and Rochelle from State Highway Administration. They're here to ask any traffic questions that the board may have, and also have asked Steve and Cindy from PRMC to be here to answer any questions, address any concerns that you or the citizens, residents may have. That's pretty much my introduction.
The only question I have before we open up public comment was that I haven't seen, I thought I was expecting maybe something different too. I was expecting either a slide presentation or something in paper that we could see what it would look like.
Yes.
What the loop road would look like and everything else.
I actually brought that. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this type of venue, but I did bring drawings to show what we. Can I bring these up to the?
Please, yeah. I'm sure you didn't bring enough for the audience.
And I didn't have a slideshow prepared. This is that's an exploded view, unintended, of the north gate. I'm sorry, I don't have. Again, I didn't realize the present. But so what I'm showing you is.
We got another one, short one here. That's short too.
You're short than that.
Actually, we're short. 50 or 60. I can see.
Well, again, I apologize. I was not expecting this venue.
See?
Was there more over there for him? Thank you. Okay. Gentlemen?
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Can you guys share that one? Or
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
thank you very much.
yeah, we're friends. Yeah.
So what you're seeing is the existing conditions, and you're seeing a proposed access road to Ocean Parkway. And you'll see that the list of residents is probably closest to the edge, which is 83 feet away. It starts to taper away from the residences to 131 feet. And again, I want to emphasize that we have this exact pattern at East Park Professional Center in Salisbury inside a neighborhood. Can I pass this one around? Because I'm sorry, I sincerely apologize.
The other side of the Kansas.
Awesome. Thank you. What I've just given you right there on the drawings is a project we're currently doing for the University of Maryland Medical System in Easton, Maryland. And the point of that drawing is to show you that our facility is contiguous and is completely surrounded by a neighborhood. And this road right here called Cadmus Lane
is actually the backloaded versions of, or the backloaded access to this neighborhood. So my point in giving you that aerial is that
This is not new. Those are actually the only objection that that neighborhood had, which is physically 50 feet away, 100 feet away, is they didn't want lit signs. So the sign panels on the building had to have a gooseneck to light the sign, but they didn't want backlit lit signs. And I had a room full of folks, interested folks, just like we have in this room here up in East, and that was their concern. The traffic was not a concern.
I'm going to ask another question.
Yes.
Before I open up the public comment. How many, you have one center developed now, is that correct?
At this facility?
Is there more on the drawing board?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, my question then is, I don't know if you can tell it or not, but how many people per hour would be coming out? And the patient goes in, gets his treatment, and comes out through this exit way. How many people are we talking about per hour would be coming out of that and exit?
Okay, for a uncompleted traffic study for two buildings, double the size of what we have, they're saying there's a total, the traffic from Stantec engineers, our traffic engineer, they're saying for two 20,000 square foot buildings, there's one 20,000 square foot building there now.
Right.
For two 20,000 square foot buildings, their statistics say 48 employees will work two offices. Now keep in mind, they're not all going to work at the same time.
Right.
So there's going to be staggering times of that. And their statistics also say 225 patients will arrive at the site on a given day. So at peak loading, there would be 225.
225 people spread out over what, 8 hours?
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that because I know that PRMC has physical therapy, and I know they have extended hours. So the good news is it doesn't compete with weekend traffic. It's typically open Monday through Friday, typically 8 to 5. So it's not necessarily competing. So that's why I believe that medical offices make good neighbors, because they're not competing with when people who may be working are at home. It works together.
I live on the north side and very familiar with the traffic pattern. And in particular, as you would imagine, in the summertime,
Yes.
I come out on Beacon Hill Road of all those, and it goes really familiar. That's 3 blocks in.
Yes.
And when I go to turn right on the Parkway, very often I can't get in. Whereas the traffic is already backed up there. Some are residents or people going to the beach or someplace else.
Yes.
I realize double lanes on the bridge might help. However, that backup is very serious, and if you add this to it, that's what I'm wondering. Considering that this is going to back it up even further.
Well, I did ask the representatives from State Highway. They have more facts than I do.
Okay.
I'm just reporting the information I have is to try to be responsive to your question for two buildings. That was the answer that they have provided.
President?
Yes, I'm sorry.
One time I saw a presentation on this, Palmer, was a little over 6 years ago. I was sitting in the audience of a board meeting before I got on this board. But looking at this map, I don't see a whole lot of change between what was presented to the board at that point. It may not have been an official request, but it was in fact a presentation of what you were going to do. From what I can tell, this looks like exactly the same proposal that was sitting on the table 6 years ago. Am I missing something?
Yes.
It sure sounds like it's exactly the same
Yes.
idea.
That loop road was actually discussed at that meeting that day. It was not a request from me, and it was not my idea.
Okay, so it wasn't an official request, but it certainly was discussed. My question is that you haven't changed the proposal since then, right?
I didn't make the request then, and that's not
Whether
my
it was a
idea.
request or not, it was a presentation.
But I want to try to be factual and specific. I'm actually asking for that now.
Okay. Then answer my question.
Yes, sir.
Is what was not a proposal then, but is now a proposal
Yes.
the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it is in fact the same thing we saw 6 years ago.
Yes.
Therefore, is my supposition correct then that the state of Maryland has refused to participate in addressing a 589 traffic problem that is being caused by this development, and therefore they have been unresponsive to you in helping to address this issue. Is that correct?
I, as a property owner, and everyone sitting in this room as a property owner, has property rights. So the state highway can only guide a property owner as to how to respond to their needs. I think if you ask, and again, I can't prove this because I haven't done the traffic study.
Well, they're here, so
Yes.
I'm asking the question, what did the state do once they knew about this situation, in that we're seeing exactly the same presentation, whether it was an official offer or not, that was on the paper 6 years ago? So has nothing been done by the state of Maryland to address what is obviously a conflicting traffic problem? When, you know, I mean, to me, if we're looking at exactly the same thing, then no progress has been made by anybody to try to solve this problem any other way. So if they want to answer that, that's fine with me. You don't have to, but somebody needs to tell me what the state has done in the last 6 years to try to address this issue.
I'll try to address that. As a property owner, I have rights to the access to the road as well. So what the state highway has done, and there's $300,000 sitting there for state highway improvements, whether you can see it or not. But to improve the access to that property, we've realigned Carthage Road as the plan required. We provided an extended deceleration lane.
Yeah, that was actually donated by Ocean
And then
Pines.
the acceleration lane was donated by Ocean Pines at the request of the State Highway Administration. So we have a design that the State Highway Administration, when presented proper traffic study, will show that it will allow a right-hand turn in and a right-hand turn out at those conditions for the full development of that project. So they have required things of me, and we've spent a lot of money to improve that intersection.
So putting it another way, what you're telling me is the state has not done anything to try to solve this problem. They stuck to the right in, right out only answer, as opposed to treating this as a traffic problem for 589, as opposed to a traffic problem that somehow now belongs to Ocean Pines.
With that, an effort to try to be divisive, I think we're here today. I'm here today to try to answer factual questions, and that's why I've answered.
Okay, so the factual answer is the state has not changed their position or offered any other alternatives to a right in and right out only.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
The emergency facilities couldn't actually, it was interesting you made the comment, it couldn't have been set up better for you to have an emergency car not being able to find and get to your facility. I state it's the exact opposite. I say that emergency car should be pointed out very graphically to our friends from the state that we have emergency cars who can't get to a facility of ours because of the traffic pattern that they have imposed on you as a resident and developer of this county. Okay, that's my statement. It's not a question. It's just a statement on my part. I'm reacting to a comment you made. Looking at this map, it looks like we have a 4-lane road for about 500 feet going on to single-lane bridge. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, okay. One other question, just one more question.
I want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure I understand what's on the table here. As I've told some people, I took out a blank piece of paper and tried to drive a solution and come up with one that was possibly different than that. When I analyze this solution, it looks to me like the only people that are going to be using the right in and right only that exists today are people that are going north on 589, turning right into the medical facility. And then when they're leaving, they're going to want to go further north. Otherwise, every single vehicle going in and out of this medical facility is going to be going over our bridges onto a 500-foot 4-lane part of a road and turning right to get to the medical facility. And then coming back out, they're going to come back out the very same road, have to go back into that same 500 feet 4-lane road to turn left to go back over the bridge. Because common sense says if you're a driver, why would you you're only going to use the right turn exit only if you're going north. Everything you pointed out, people today coming out of there are having to go quick stop, go over our bridge, do an illegal turn, all kinds of things of traffic pattern problems are being caused because you were granted only a right turn in and a right turn out only access to a road of 589 that clearly needs, in my personal opinion, so there's no surprise what you're hearing from me, this is a state problem. This is a 589 traffic problem that does not belong to Ocean Pines. I understand why you would, because I tried to come up with a solution too. The only solution I could come up with is the one you drew. Because of the right turn in and right turn only. There really is no other solution that I could come up with either. Okay? So at this point, traffic study. When was this? Is this traffic study done based purely on a 20,000 square foot building, or was it done where people actually watched the traffic pattern of Ocean Pines? Or was it a combination?
It's none of the above.
A
A traffic study consists of a period of time where a study's done. The expense is $30,000 to $50,000, and it only lasts for 12 months. And I'm not opposed to doing that, and we will do that. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to represent to you and the residents that we have a quality facility, a regional healthcare provider that will provide good services to the residents. So when you say it's not of interest to the residents, it is. But because, and I think you'll hear from PRMC that every day, all day long, the residents of Ocean Pines complain about access to this facility. And I appreciate your trying to help me get full tilt access to 589, but I don't know that that's the best solution for the overall residents of Ocean Pines. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of, if I was a resident of Ocean Pines, I wouldn't want to have to go back at 589 and add more to the traffic issues. I want to go in with a direct cortisone shot into my shoulder. Ouch. I want to go in that way. I don't want to have to go through and deal with the summer traffic. I want to have a direct access. So that drawing that you have there is only a concept drawing. Mr. Hand, Bob Hand, sketched that for me. I had it run by a traffic engineer, but I don't want to represent that that's a study. It's an idea. And we're here today, us folks are here today to try to come up with a solution that works not only for State Highway, Peninsula Regional Hospital, and the residents of Ocean Pines, but for the overall solution. That's what we're presenting. And if this falls flat on its face, I think it's a great solution for this process. But if it falls flat on its face, then so be it. I mean, I have to let the chips fall where they may. But I believe in my heart that this is the best solution for the residents of Ocean Pines holistically.
I have no question that this is a very fine medical facility with well-trained people and good jobs and all that. And I think it's great that got developed. I think it's wonderful. It's just, to me, the one piece of this that has been sitting out there looking for a solution for 6 years, we're getting exactly the same solution that was put on the table 6 years ago.
Well, if you listen to one of the representatives from Worcester County, they quote unquote said that I would never be granted access to that property over Donnie Brewer's dead body. That was a quote from a Worcester County planning and zoning person. So to that point, and I am not happy to report that, but that was a direct quote from a Worcester County Planning Department personnel. I know for a fact, and Mr. Brewer knows for a fact, number one, his dead body's not here yet today, but I know for a fact that the state has to allow you access to the highway. They have to provide access. What they have strings with is how they provide access. And I think statistically, again, I'm not putting words into Dallas's or Rochelle's or Donnie's mouths, but statistically and factually, the right-hand turn in and the right-hand turn out fits what is required for the overall development of this project. But what we're seeing is that the residents and the patients that are visiting this facility are inconvenienced, and it is a public safety issue. That's how we see it.
I got my question. Thank you.
I forgot what I was going to say. It was a long time ago. Very long time. At any rate, yeah. My first question was, my initial question was, now I have others, is on this access road, or the entrance road as it's called on the map, there's no traffic light shown at the bridge.
That would be something that we would have to work with or negotiate. Could be a four-way stop like the South Gate. I mean, I had a council representative. I had a council representative meet with me and say that he's had his business there forever. He's never had a problem with a four-way stop. It could be that. I'm here for solutions, not for. It could be widening the bridge. It could be widening the bridge. It could be lots of different things. But when you say that's a 4-lane road, you're absolutely positively totally right, Mr. Terry. It's a 4-lane road that we're proposing there. It's a 3-lane road actually, because it's a turn in and a turn and 2 turns out. But if you're talking about Ocean Parkway, yes, it's pretty much exists in a widened pattern because there's a float. But yes, the answer to that is correct, and it tunnels into one lane. If you're exiting the North Gate, it tunnels into 1 lane. I think that's wrong. I came before some residents 6 years ago and proposed replacing or adding a lane to the bridge. That was not received very well. At my expense, not Ocean Pines' expense, at my expense. That was not received very well. In fact, it was kind of pretty well, shockingly posed.
I was there back then. I was in. It was an informal presentation, and the board didn't take any action. It was just a conversation, actually. And to Mr. Terry's point, we 6 years and we don't have a solution. And it occurs to me that there is no other solution. That in fact, right in, right out is what we've got. And the only other alternative is some version of what you presented on this diagram. I believe that's the case. And if it weren't the case, in 6 years, somebody would have come up with the alternative. Am I right?
Well, there's plenty of alternatives that none of them seem to work. A traffic light's an alternative. Unfortunately, the residents here, like anybody else, wants 589 dualized. Well, that doesn't fit in the state highway requirements because you have about 1,800 feet between the Route 90 traffic light and the Northgate traffic light. The rule today on an undivided road, and I'm saying this in front of the State Highway Administration, so I think I'm right on this. I might be wrong, but I can make mistakes. The rule there on an undivided highway is 750 feet, I think. We have enough to fit that criteria. But it's an impediment to dualizing 589. Not to mention the fact that as a resident of Ocean Pines, I don't want to go out on 589. I've been at that traffic light sitting for it to rotate 1 or 2 cycles. I know how I'm an impatient person, and I'm running my fingers on the dashboard or the steering wheel or whatever. But really, I drive enough to Washington, D.C. to know that I'm thankful that I live here where I live, and the traffic's not like it is in some of the metropolitan areas. So I'm thankful for that. So if it rotates 1 or 2 times, that's not a major problem. That's normal. That's what a lot of people would call normal. But yeah, I believe that could be a traffic light there. It could be a 4-way stop, and I know there's a lot of people who don't like the 4-way stop at the South Gate.
You're talking about a traffic light now, not on 589, traffic light.
Yes.
On the Central.
Yes. I'm sorry. What I was referring to is the traffic light on 589.
On 589.
It doesn't. It prevents an impediment to utilization. So it could be a traffic light here, or it could be a 4-way stop. And it could be that I have a situation in Seaford where I've actually agreed with DelDOT that I would actually at some future date, if traffic light was warranted, which is a technical term they use, that we would participate in paying for that traffic light. It's a medical center, just like this is, 90,000 square feet, that we would participate. So if a 4-way stop doesn't work, if it's even something the board would consider, then we would participate or pay for a traffic light. Public safety is, again, having lived here, having waited for that queuing on the traffic light, I'm impatient with the traffic light for 2 cycles. But that's what the most it's going to be. And I think that's one of the reasons why the folks from State Highway are here, because the facts are that only happens if I say it wrong, I'm sorry, only 3 to 5% of the times. The facts.
If my memory is correct, it wasn't too long ago that we had a presentation by Chip Teen, and I can't apologize. Somebody from the state highways. We were talking about dualization. Wasn't that in the 2030s? I mean, that's a long time away for this.
It's $1 million project.
Right? And we're, yeah, and we're looking at something which would presumably be a lot closer. And there isn't anything on this drawing that shows me it's a reasonable solution, and that's all of the people coming out of Ocean Pines using the North Point Gate are going to be inconvenienced by this, all of them. And during the summer, it would be a little more than an inconvenience. And the benefit goes to those people who want patrons of medical facility, which I think is a relatively smaller number, quite a bit smaller. Small. You know, I'm just thinking of overall benefit. What benefits to most people in Ocean Pines?
Well, I've offered two ideas for benefits, but public safety is one benefit. The convenience of the residents is another benefit. But there's two other ideas that the board should think about. One is widening the bridge. There was a discussion with a prior general manager about improving the aesthetics of the Northgate Bridge. Widening it, that would solve a lot of problems. Just by adding one lane to the exiting bridge. Just by adding one lane solves a lot. If you look at a lot of the turns, the west side of 589 could be widened to allow 2 lanes to turn south. So there's lots of benefits. It could be annexed. There could be a dues-paying property to the Pines. So there's lots of different things that we're bringing here today as ideas. Again, what you'll hear from PRMC is that every day, all the patients, not all, most of the patients or many of the patients can see that it's a traffic problem, and their access, who are Ocean Pines residents, and if you want us to provide more factual with petitions and signatures and stuff like that, we'll be more than happy to do that. That it's a problem. So I'm here today to help to try to solve the problem. I'm respectful of the contiguous property owners, shown by wanting to set aside 5 acres of land to buffer. I don't think that the property values will be diminished in any way whatsoever. And as far as the convenience, I do agree with what you're saying, Mr. Terry and Mr. Stevens, that yes, it's an inconvenience to the people exiting. The question is how many times, and does the convenience of regional class healthcare outweigh the inconvenience of having to wait for the traffic to signal 1 or 2 times?
It's an inconvenience, and it's a hazard. I mean, 4-way stops. I mean, we all have experience with them. We go over Franklin Road and Park, and it works, but there's always a certain amount of risk that are associated with it.
I totally agree. And the people, in my experience with the Southgate, the people who use that are polite and respectful, and they understand. I don't know about younger people, but at least the people that I've experienced at the 4-way stop are polite enough to follow the rules of courtesy.
And I do Franklin every day, and you're right, they are. For the most part, except when they're not, in which case you get actions. I guess, by the way, I also heard, I was surprised you didn't say to begin with, but 6 years ago you also talked about widening the bridge and expanding that section of 589
yes.
where the on the south lake.
Yes, actually at that point replacing the bridge was an idea.
Well, just one more question. Are you asking us to do any more than just think about this?
I'm presenting a public safety problem that I've caused knowingly. I'm also presenting the board for consideration of the convenience of health care to residents of Ocean Pines, who are mostly the users of those services. I've heard enough people complain about, I got to drive to Salisbury, I got to drive all the way down to Berlin, I got to, for services. I get that. The whole rules have changed for delivering healthcare. The healthcare rules say, bring it to the people, not that people come to the institution, bring it to the people. That's what we're trying to deliver. We believe this access, as presented, albeit with conditions of either annexation or widening the bridge or a traffic light or a 4-way stop or something like that, we believe that this is the best solution that we can come up with to solve, and I'm not taking the state highway side on this. I think this is the best solution locally. And please, if you have questions of state highway or PRC, I want to share the spotlight here a little bit. Would you guys like Steve Leonard from PRMC or Donnie Drewer to come up to try to respond to some questions also, please?
Well, that's not hold
Now,
on.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to turn it over to Jack Carr.
Yeah, I don't have the depth of experience that these two gentlemen have. You know, they've been around a heck of a lot longer, but I don't mean that chronologically as far as their age is concerned. They've been around a long time. So I'm going to direct my questions to Bob because they're points of information, Bob, that I'm curious about, just to get some background information. They're innocent. The area where he is proposing to put this road, that's open space? Is that considered open space?
Yes, sir. It's by the drawing that I see here, the pond, and then the space, and then there's a fence there.
Okay. So does that bring the county into play here as far as utilizing open space? Is there certain zoning restrictions or anything of that nature vis-a-vis the county? To your knowledge?
But we've gone to zoning in Worcester County. The zoning is okay. I had an attorney, Mark Cropper, contacted planning office. Zoning is not an issue. And if you're saying open space in the terms of POS, Public Open Space Fund, it's not public space. It's an ornamental stormwater pond. It's an ornamental pond.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
How about the other side? Bill?
Morning.
Good morning.
You talked about 2 buildings. How many buildings are you planning, and you need this road to be able to expand to those buildings? Is the county telling you that you need this road to be able to go from 1 to 2 to whatever, however many?
Good question. The total absolute, as a developer, whether you like developers or not, we all live in houses built by developers. The development calls for a grand total of 5 buildings, grand total of 90,000 square feet. We actually have approval from the county for all 5 building site work. We do not, for each building, it has to go to planning and zoning for approval. What's missing in that is this traffic study that will show that the right in and the right out will support those 5 buildings. I don't have that. I have not presented that to State Highway. What I do have approval from State Highway on is 2 20,000 square foot buildings, another building, a twin building of the one we have there now. Is that responsive?
Yeah, so you have the study, you just haven't presented it to State Highways, or you don't have the study?
No, there's a time clock on the studies, and when you're investing $30,000 in a traffic study, you want to make sure that the timing's right so it doesn't expire.
Okay. My problem is you're bringing all these other folks outside of Ocean Pines onto our property, which makes us liable because they're coming onto our property, crossing our bridge, making the turns there, whether it's a 4-way stop, whether it's this. We're going to be liable for those folks coming onto Ocean Pines property.
Where were the live plates? I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, they're on Ocean Pines property. We're allowing them, if we allow this, we're allowing them to come onto Ocean Pines property. Something happens at the stop sign or whatever. That's my concern. But also, as we get older, we go to the doctor a little bit more often. I was just there the other day. I know I'm an Ocean Pines resident. I'm going to go out Cathell Road and make the right-hand turn, go in, then make the right-hand turn, come back through Ocean Pines. I think you're kind of, saying, well, people are going to keep doing this or whatever. We learn how we have to go there, and I didn't have any problem with come there, make the right-hand turn into the building, and then making the right-hand turn and come back out to Ocean Pines. We learn how to get to the doctors safely and, on foot.
So when you entered it and you came from the North Gate Bridge,
No, I did not. I came from Cathell.
So I'm using that as an example. If you want to go to the complex and you're using the North Gate Bridge, you're turning south of 589. Right now, you have to do an illegal U-turn to get into the project.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is we learn how to get there.
Making it an illegal U-turn.
No. Going down south, coming from the south.
Okay, so you would actually go around to the south gate. Man, yeah, I understand. I'm sorry.
Cathell or Capital.
Yeah.
I was just
right. Okay.
That's my point. I was going to add to Bill what I was saying is, do we know what percentage of people will be using your center? I mean, how many will be from Ocean Pines versus Berlin or Oklahoma City or whatever?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, but the answer I would have is that,
Hold that question.
yeah, I will hold that question. But I will say that living in the south, as I live in the north, when I have to go someplace in the south, I either go through the Ocean Parkway and get there, or else I go out on the road. This one, it takes out that, I mean, out on 589, it takes out the 589 point, but they can go all around. I mean, that's the way I look at it. If they come out from the right egress, they go into Ocean Pines, north, go all the way around, come back out to where they're going to live. I don't think it's too much of an inconvenience. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, both.
Well, that's an inconvenience when they wait 120 seconds at the stoplight.
Well, if you turn to right, you don't have to
I know,
wait.
I know. I'm just saying. I was trying to be funny there. So.
Yeah, Bill?
I'm sorry, I still don't believe I got an answer. Do you believe that if you go to 5 buildings, that you will need some kind of other entrance in that exit?
I believe that the traffic study that I will produce will show that a right-hand turn in and a right-hand turn out will support all 5 buildings.
Oh, it will.
Yes. I'm just, that's the facts. But the facts and reality sometimes don't add up. The reality is the convenience and public safety of users of that facility.
I'm sure you're going to get lots more questions and comments, but I got to start off by saying, Mr. Gillis, I find it really curious that you would have purchased this property knowing what you were going to put there without having dealt with this issue right up front. I mean, went forward knowing that the board 6 years ago said no. I find that remarkable. But anyway, I have a question about why did you cut down all the trees that were existing? Is it your intention to put up some sort of sound barrier, some sort of buffer to replace the trees that were already there?
15 years ago, those trees didn't exist. There was an open farm land. I have the aerials to show that. So I'm not saying that all of them didn't exist, but many of them did. I have the aerials to show that. But anyway, that being said, to respond to your first question, I truly believe that first, zoning plays into the situation. So there's only a certain amount of land in Worcester County that's allowed by law to put a facility like this on it. This is one of them. And there's not many of them. As you can see, what was happening around Ocean Downs, there's a lot of zoning issues, a lot of questions there. There's only a few exclusive enclaves or pockets of land in Worcester County that you're allowed to put a facility like this. I do medical offices. That's what I do, in addition to being a general contractor. I believed in 2004 that this was the right spot to put medical offices. As far as the access goes, I can show, I believe, that it can support a total facility with a right-hand turn in and a right-hand turn out.
So then why are we looking at something else? If
I'm trying to be responsive to your residents, I believe.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that there isn't one person in this audience here who represents these people that you say want a different access, but rather these are all people who say, don't take my land to put this road in.
Well, and that's about when they're not expecting rooms for folks that would be opposed to this, because most of the time, to support something, don't come. That's the fact. And I'm not trying to be
rounded them up and brought them here.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to these folks, because I respect their proper rights and I respect their comments. And I thought we brought legitimate comments and ideas to Ocean Pines. We never asked for this access road 6 years ago. I want to be absolutely, abundantly, and perfectly clear. We did an informational presentation of what we were going to be. The reason we were there is because Worcester County was trying to take that zoning classification away and make it affordable housing or multifamily. I wanted to build medical offices, but they wanted to make it multifamily residential. So what I was asking for the board that day was support for this being a medical facility. And the discussion at that time came for access. But what the point I was trying to make of the board at that day, and Mr. Stevens was there, was Mr. Terry? You were
I was in the audience.
right, okay, you're in the
I was
audience.
running for the board.
You were there.
I lost my
So
mind.
that being said, I think the idea of this loop road, this idea didn't come from me. This idea came for that day. But the reason I was there was for the purposes of support from the board, so that Worcester County wouldn't take this enclave of properly zoned land away from us and convert it to what would be multifamily residential. If you think the folks are upset today about this, what would happen if 200 apartment affordable housing projects units go there? Okay.
If I can just,
We can do that.
for a point of clarification, I was there. The board did not, I'm sorry, the board did not take a vote. The board did not say no. Mr. Gillis is correct. He presented the concept, and there was discussion. And then it just dropped. Nothing happened. It wasn't no, it wasn't yes. It was just plain nothing. That's probably may happen after this meeting, I'm thinking.
One more clarification, and this may be a question for your state folks you brought with, but I don't know if the extrapolation works perfectly or not, but if two 20,000 square foot buildings create 225 people per day of patients plus 48 employees, I just used patients. If you take that to 90,000, that's 4.5 times. That's 1,000 cars going over this road. And my question to the state is, the idea that you can't put in a street light to help manage the traffic, to help the development of a very good medical facility that we all, and we're not panning that at all. I think it's a great idea, this thing being built close to us. My question to the state is, what are the rules? If you're talking about 1,000 cars, is the rule really that you can't put in a street light to help manage the traffic of 1,000 cars going in and out of a medical facility? I'm asking the state.
Are you talking a traffic light or a street?
Traffic. I think you meant traffic. I think you meant traffic.
Talking about a traffic light.
Yes.
What did I say, street light? Oh, great, okay. Anyway, obviously I meant street light.
That's like a Journey song.
Traffic.
Does anybody? Can I ask some of the members of
Yeah, I mean, I named the question over here.
and Donnie was here at the house. Who wants to? We get. Okay.
Could you tell us who you are and what you represent? Thanks. You're wearing galoshes, so you're expecting the worst.
He's out there clearing the roads for you guys.
I get both ways today. Donnie Drewer, I'm District Engineer, State Highway Administration. I've been District Engineer for 28 years. And first off, let me talk about this piece of property. Over the 28 years that I've been District Engineer, we've had oodles and noodles and noodles of developers come in and want to develop this piece of property. They've wanted, Mr. Gillis said they wanted apartment buildings, whatever they wanted. I can remember, I believe the last one before Mr. Gillis came was, I think a Giant, when there is a Giant, or it was a big grocery store anyway. But the way State Highway works, if there's a piece of property that is next to a state road, we are required by law to give access to that piece of property. What we do is, for instance, when Mr. Gillis came to us and said he wanted to put 2 buildings for a medical center on that piece of property, what we did is we took the type of building that he wanted to put there, or type of facility, and we have guidelines that says a medical building will create X number of trips per day. We take those trips per day and we say, here's what you'd have to do in order to mitigate the traffic that goes on that road. Now, first off, let's back up again, because there's another issue. Is 3 or 4 years ago, we did a traffic study on 589. to see what we needed to do on 589 to mitigate the summertime traffic. We spent, I don't know, $2 or $3 million on the study. And what came out of that study was eventually from Beecham Road, I believe it is, to Route 50 would be dualized. And the next question is, what's happening? What we did is it was based on our elected officials' priority list. Well, the priority list for Worcester County for the last 10 years at least has been finish US 113.
That's right.
And I'm proud to say that we have finally funded the last phase of 113 just this past year. So within the next 3 or 4 years, 113 will be finished. Now the next step is for the elected officials to decide what's next on the list. Well, if you take all the projects that just in Worcester County, dualization of Route 90, new bridge, Route 50 going into Ocean City, dualization of 589. If you just take those 3 projects and add the total cost together, you're talking millions and millions and hundreds, maybe even you might even say $1 billion. So we have to take this one step at a time. Well, we've done the planning study, and the planning study said we're going to have a dual Route 589. And what our process is when a developer comes and wants to have an access on 589, and we've done a planning study. Well, it's no need to do a planning study and then to allow something to happen. It's not, excuse me, I'm losing my voice because I got a head cold. When we do this planning study, what we want to do is to have these access points based on future, based on the planning study. So the reason we have a right in, right out is because some years from now, when we have a dualization project, you're not going to be able to do those movements. It's going to have to be right in, right out. Whatever you have to do, we can't have a break in the median because it's too close to the north entrance. It's too close to that signal. So these are the reasons that we require the right in, right out. Sure, if I knew 10 years from now, when we were going to dualize, we could allow full movement to that access. But let me tell you something, when we come back 10 years from now to dualize Route 589, KRMC or Mr. Gillis is going to say, hey, you're going to have to pay me. You're taking away our access. So that's the reason that we have a right in, right out. Right now, we have enough documentation for him to build 2 buildings. One that's built now and one he's building, I believe it is. If he wants to go 3, 4, or 5, he has to come back to us with another traffic study that says, here's what we're going to do to mitigate that extra traffic. In other words, if he can't mitigate, in other words, if he puts in 5 buildings and all the traffic is going out that one entrance causes that intersection to fail completely, then we can't give him permission unless he mitigates that. Now, mitigation might build a bridge over 589. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, he has to do at his expense, not at the state highway's expense. So that's kind of a roundabout way of telling you what our process is. Now, when we first opened that, I guess I could say Dallas's phone rang off the hook about how bad things were, et cetera, et cetera. Well, whenever we open a new access point, we get all these phone calls. The first thing we ask is, that we take a 60 or 90-day period just to look so people get used to it. Of course, the first day it opens, everybody's going to be confused. But you have to change drivers' habits. In other words, whoever, I think it was you that said, you now go out Capitol Road and come back because you're now trained. That was that 60 to 90-day period. So these are things why we don't even take a look at it until 60 or 90 days. But we did go in and try to put some flex posts to keep people doing illegal movements, but people go do illegal movements unless the cop sits there. I can't stop it. The only thing I can say is to have cops sit there. So that's just my take on it, and I'm glad to ask any questions you have, or answer any questions you have.
Just to make sure I understand what was said, what I'm hearing is basically two folks that are in a tough spot because your rules and regulations that you're saying you have to live by, I want to make sure I understand it, that because the road might be dualized at some point.
Well, I'd say will be dualized.
Well, will be. Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. It's going to be dualized at some point. Then nothing in the interim should be done to displace those plans. So therefore, there's really nothing you can do.
Well, sure. No, that's.
Is that an overstatement?
Yes.
Okay.
There is something we can do. We could allow full movement access. Okay. But we're just pushing the problem down the street because when we dualize, the problem's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're trying to address the problem now. Now, as far as Mr. Gillis here, he asked us to come to answer questions. We're not here to either support or not support. Okay, we got absolutely no say on whether you say yay, nay, or go on home or what.
There's no secret. I'm looking for the state to help try to solve this issue, at least in the interim. And I appreciate your answers. So now I have a full picture of what you're up against. I appreciate it.
So I can see the benefits of connection, and I can also see the other side. I don't. If I. Well, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Johnny, can you speak to the issue of the intersection itself of proposed access and Ocean Parkway? I mean, we were discussing about the number of turns, the queuing time and the wait time. I think you had an internal traffic study at that bridge, which hopefully the board would appreciate hearing the facts.
Well, years ago, the board asked us, can't remember which board it was, but we had in fact, there was a committee, the Ocean Pines Committee. It was called the 589 Committee, but anyway, one of the things that we talked about was the North Gate itself, people were complaining that they had to set, signal turn red, they had to sit there 4 or 5 different, well, what I was getting was 4 or 5 different times before they got out of the pine. So we had a traffic study done because we were looking at the possibility of putting a double left turn coming out, get people out to a signal. And we had a traffic study done, and the traffic study came back and said, for instance, more like what Mr. Gillis said, that 95% of the time, everybody got out on the first green signal, one green signal. There was occasions where you had to have 2, but that was probably the max that you had set through 2 signals. So we abandoned it because it really wasn't necessary.
That's true. Again, from my north side experience, I go out there Beacon Hill Road every day. If it stopped at Beacon Hill, I usually can expect 2 lights. If it moves up to the next street, which is Bramblewood, I usually get out on the first light. Sure.
And the only other issue that I would point out is the condition we got out there today is the best it's going to be. because we don't have summertime traffic now. I mean, when we get summertime traffic, it's going to get worse.
Mr. Brewer, could you explain?
Now, hold on, wait a minute. We have to wait for public comment. I'm sorry.
okay.
We want to hear from Paul. Okay?
Mr. Drew, I have a couple just from my understanding. Palmer had mentioned an impediment, and I thought you covered it, but I want to make sure I understand it. The impediment would be if a traffic light were to be put up now in front of the property, okay, so you could access from either direction. The impediment becomes later when 589 becomes dualized.
No, really, the same thing happens right now. Right, you know, probably this time of year we could put a signal up there and it wouldn't probably have an effect. But in the summertime, when you got more traffic, there's more traffic backs up on Red Circle, and it would go right through. You know, in other words, it wouldn't be a break in it.
Right. So with the impediments, just the backup down 589.
Yeah, it just would be.
Has been referred to. Okay. And then 589, my understanding, 2025 is the latest projection for dualized. Is that inaccurate information?
I think that's inaccurate.
Okay, when did you say it would be?
I can't put a date on it. First off, I can only say that we have just funded the last section of 113. That was the number one priority of our elected officials. Now, the elected officials, I don't know what their next priority is going to be.
Well,
it could be 589.
I understand.
And then,
3 or 4 years ago, there was a big meeting at Berlin Middle School or intermediate school, and we all attended, and they talked 2025 was the target for dualizing. I mean, it was a big thing. We had to go around the stations and learn
it
about
might be sooner than that, or it might be later than that. You know, we're talking about funds now. You know, we're talking about a lot of money.
And then the last question I have for understanding, at this point, the write-in and write-out supports 2 buildings, 20,000 square feet.
That's right.
Okay? We don't know if the other 3 buildings can be built with the write-in and write-access, write-in and write-out, until Mr. Gillis presents that.
That's correct.
Through
We
his
don't
traffic
know that
study.
until we get a traffic study. Now,
wanted to
the existing entrance, we didn't have a traffic study. Correct? Am I correct, Rochelle?
It was
It wasn't accounted.
It was traffic count.
Because we didn't have anything to count. So what they do is they say, well, medical facilities, this square, you know, you have this many people go. So we use those. Now we're in the process of getting an actual count. So we'll actually know how many people go in and out of there. We should have that within the next couple of months, right now. So we'll know that. And then it will be up to Mr. Gillis when he gets ready to go for his 3rd or 4th, 5th building. He would come in with a complete traffic study that tells us how many trips in and out that they're going to require, and based on those trips, we can tell what is necessary for him to do to mitigate the traffic that goes on 589.
And is that traffic study 365 days during the year, or that we have a seasonal problem there?
Yeah, well, it would be worst. It would be
Worst case?
Yes, it'd be worst case.
And then the last question I have just for you with your expertise of 225,000, 3 times that is 1,000 people a day. Do you know if 1,000 traffic count a day is acceptable for a write-in and write-out
I
or
can't
not?
answer that question because, you know, well, I can't answer that question until we do more study. But I don't know as you can equate the 225 and make it 1,000 because I don't know if the same buildings, because some of the medical facility buildings might be dialysis or whatever, where you don't have as many people, you know, go and the ones that go stay longer. That's something that PRMC would have to answer.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Bob said he wanted to say, you want to have anything else?
Bob, would you want to open it up to the public for study, or just go through all
Anybody
your
else on your panel?
because the reps from PRMC would have to expose themselves to questions also.
Why don't we hear from PRMC and then we'll open it up to everybody again.
This is Steve Leonard from Peninsula Regional Medical Center.
Great job.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Again, my name is Steve Leonard. I'm one of the vice presidents from PRMC, and I do want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and understand what is obviously a very significant issue that's been going on in many ways much longer than we've been out in front of your residents. I do want to speak to those who have established a relationship with us or have had a relationship with us. I have to say it's been a wonderful experience. I'm actually responsible for the number of services in that first building. And it has been everything we've hoped for since the day we opened up the property up until every day. Hopefully your experience has been good. At the same time, I have to say we also hear about the downside pretty much every day. And that's many of the conversations we've been having with our developer, Mr. Gillis, on that site, is because we really do want to figure out a solution. We're not predisposed to any one in particular other than having candid conversations, you might say, with Mr. Gillis that we have to have a solution. We're experts at providing health care, and much of what he has described is very accurate in terms of our need to get away from the big box in Salisbury, you might say, and towards these boxes that are much closer to home to allow convenience, access, to establish very personal relationships with the communities. And you probably saw that up in Millsboro with Delmarva Health Pavilion Millsboro. We have the Ocean Pines. This isn't the last one. I would expect that it will continue. We've had conversations about down in the southern part of the county, Pocomoke. We've talked about Cambridge, but that really is the trend, is to put the boxes closer to home. And we really do need to find a solution to that effort. So our plan at this point in time, as we've told Mr. Gillis pretty clearly, is that before we continue to invest, obviously he has significant dollars out there. When you start talking about medical office buildings and the services that we aspire to provide over time, the investments are quite significant. In many ways, much more than the actual property. You start talking about technology and those sorts of things. So it really is important for us to figure out some sort of solution. Otherwise, we're in somewhat of an awkward position to continue that process any further. And that's really why we wanted to escalate our concern. We're hearing about it every day, and we really do want to help figure out some sort of solution to this situation. But again, just as importantly, we've been very privileged so far. So I don't want to minimize that. We're very happy being there and hopefully providing you all with very good service each and every day in that first building. So I'll keep my comments to a minimum in the interest of hearing.
We have a question, Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Gillis said that the healthcare rules, he used that word, require you to take to the people. That's not accurate, is it? There are no rules associated with the Affordable Care Act.
No, I can't say that.
that.
I would say that there's influences on us to make sure we provide great care in a lower cost setting, because we're held accountable for great quality, good experience, and the most efficient from a cost perspective. And what we do know as an industry, lower cost tends to be not the big hospital in Salisbury. No, that's not lower cost. It's smaller, more ambulatory locations. And that's what guides us from a principal perspective, because that helps everyone. It's challenging to travel. It's much easier to find something, and that also helps us engage the patients, because our other goal is to have more active relationships. You've probably heard of our Live Well campaign. We want to connect folks with the services. So we're driven more by that need than anything to do from okay.
All right. Thank you very much. And report back to Palmer, and we're going to. Is there any other comments from the board before we turn it over to the public? I ask you once again. I'm sorry. Before we start, let me just say this: once again, try to keep your comments limit you to 5 minutes, please, for anybody. Keep your comments non-emotional if you can. State facts. Talk about what you think. What the problem is. You see it. And before I start it up.
Yeah, I do want to make, I didn't answer your question earlier about why I cleared all the land there. I did not answer. And again, we go to the rules. The rules of why I selected that property was because of zoning rules. The reason why we cleared the entire property is because we have one of the 3 buildings on that entire property approved. But we also have the whole infrastructure approved, and infrastructure is not cheap. So when you're building and developing a project like this, rule number 1 is you're going to lose about 10% of your land for stormwater management, maybe even as much as 20% of your land. The project we have in Seaver, 10 acres, 2 acres stormwater management. So the rules require me to take away developable rights, which I'm okay with, because I'm from around when the Clean Water Act didn't even exist. So no stormwater management. We had flooding, lots of different places. So I'm a closet environmentalist to say, to the extent that the rules require me to take away portions of my land for stormwater management, public infrastructure, fire retention basins, rain gardens, etc. So let's say you have 20 acres, you're taking away 10%. I think it's closer. People say that's 2 acres. We've also set aside 5 acres for a buffer, which is in the property directly contiguous to most of the properties. So we've taken away another 5 acres. So of the 20 acres, if you really, and again, the rules require me to take away developable rights, property rights of a property owner, which I'm okay with, to satisfy certain requirements. We did the 5 acres as an election. The rules require us to take away for stormwater management as a requirement. That's how we got to that reason for clearing all those acres. You can't go efficiently do infrastructure, which satisfies all those areas without clearing that entire property. One property is, in order to get efficiency of land use, you need a regional type concept as opposed to a per spot concept. So the stormwater management requirements are going to require a regional solution, which is the 15 acres that we're left with. So that's why we cleared the remaining land, because the next building goes on that property. The other thing I would hope, and I think I did respond to you about the zoning situation. So
you did, but then I asked you to say, or excuse me, I asked you to respond as to then what buffer or whatever are you planning to replace those trees?
The trees that are taken down. So the remaining land that we just cleared?
Is there going to be any sort of buffer or
like a sound
barrier?
Like
well,
a sound
when you say a sound barrier, keep in mind the buildings were stepped back pretty far from residents because between zoning of commercial and residential. But on the land where the Cactus Road is cleared, there is a landscaping tree line that will be reinstalled along that I guess it's the south edge, where the road kind of moves around back there.
Well,
but we've
I think there's going to be somebody that's present here today who will tell you more specifically what I'm referring to about what that did to them in terms of the noise now that they have to deal with by those trees being cut down. And so that's why I'm asking about was there some sort of intention to put some sort of buffer there, sound barrier, whatever, to deal with the fact that now those trees are gone and what the property owners are feeling. And I think somebody in the audience will probably address that more specifically.
Sound from what?
Road noise.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I understood, because I don't think the development itself creates. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I understood. So if there are any other questions, I'll be glad to follow through with however you guys want.
Okay.
Should I stay up here to try to answer questions?
Why don't you stand aside and let them use the mic?
Okay. Perfect.
Yes, Bill, what's the problem?
Maybe Mr. Gillis can come here
Okay,
because
right
there's
here.
people that's live streaming, so you can sit
Yeah.
here at and the questioners can use the microphone.
Oh.
You can sit right here.
In regards to the 1,000 patients, keep in mind that all these buildings are not the same size. One of them is half the size. So the probability, as Mr. Drewer suggested, the dialysis, like radiation treatment, some of the treatments don't require the same number of patients.
Why don't you have a seat up here, please? Now, I ask you to stand up when you come up to the microphone, make sure you give me your name and where you're living, and to state your question. Please keep it within a reasonable time of 5 minutes. I have be time much as I can. My phone isn't working.
Good morning.
I'll be my time.
Good morning. My name is Slobodan Trendik, 20 Drawbridge Road. I'd like to make a comment, which is also / recommendation. I'll use the Latin expression carpe diem, which some of you know what it means. Seize the opportunity, seize the day. Now that we have Mr. Gillis here and the state highway officials, you discussed earlier the issues related to the traffic on the Parkway, north entrance. I think Pat Renault also commented on that, what we actually have to deal with. This especially becomes a problem in the summer with a substantial amount of traffic basically doubling up. There are many times on the weekends when you're at the traffic light with no traffic on 589, and I'm waiting for a green light. So what I would like to suggest as a possible consideration to improve the existing situation, this is basically a very small fix, easy fix, in preparation for the summer traffic and those that leave the medical facility and go into Ocean Parkway and cheat with U-turns. How quickly can we get sensors installed at the traffic light? Other traffic lights like at the river run have it. So when I come to the red light, there's no traffic on 589, that I can get a green light within 10 seconds as opposed to 2 minutes. That's just a simple, easy possibility to perhaps improve the existing condition without too much work. But those that leave North Entrance and sit at their traffic light, leave the community, many of them that can probably confirm what we have experienced in summer mornings or throughout the day, waiting for a long green light to come back, and there's no traffic really on 589 quite often. So this was just a comment, and I hope perhaps this can be, looked into. Like I said, it's a simple, easy step to improve the existing condition, especially because we know that any solution to the existing problem is going to take months, if not even longer. And in the meantime, we'll have to deal with the traffic coming out of the medical complex and making those illegal U-turns, which are going to be even more difficult when our community traffic stacks up at the red light and sometimes wait a lot longer than necessary. Thank you very much for your attention.
I appreciate the suggestion, but I'm not sure I understood it.
Well, what I'm saying is,
I thought that
we re-signalized that
we thought that there was a camera.
nope, there isn't. There is no sensor at that traffic light like what you have at the river run or others. So
We'll certainly look into it. It's certainly a legitimate complaint.
it will be a huge plus. And I know last year when I was a little more active in the community, I was getting emails from people in the community that were encouraging me to bring this up with the State Highway Administration. So that simple sensor will certainly be a huge, step in the right direction in the meantime. Thank you. Thank you.
But the other thing we're looking at is that somebody's request for this whole thing was going to change the lighting out there to LED lights to light the intersection up. And that's coming. But I didn't know there wasn't a.
There is no sensor, and it would be great to have one. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Here's your name. Thank you.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Mike Sparks. My wife and I own 18 Dawn Isle, right there, pretty much behind the facility. We purchased it 3 years ago in hopes that when all of our children go to college, that will make this our place to live. I currently am a business owner. In a previous life, I was a director of economic development for a small community out of Western Maryland. I also owned a company that did economic development studies for communities funded by the DHCD. So I have a pretty good idea of a lot of things with development. And kind of what I see here is I'm sure you're a very good man and care a lot about people and communities, but ultimately you are a developer. And developers want to develop. That's where they come from. And I can tell you most developers that I've run across with have the attitude that you develop large projects, like the joke says, like you're eating an elephant, one bite at a time. And quite often they move forward in that direction, knowing that small communities will gradually allow them to get to their larger picture. The facility right now, as he went to the state of Maryland, was designed for 2 buildings. Ultimately, it sounds like what he's looking for now is to say, how I got to the 2 building effort, now how do I get to the 5 building effort? How do I move forward? I'm not going to be able to do this with the state of Maryland, or it's going to be very difficult. So I'm now going to ask the community and present myself as saying that I'm taking care of the residents in the community. As it was stated, residents in the community will enter below it, enter into the north gate, come around. We're taking care of already the existing exit entry. This has nothing to do with the community. This has to do with giving traffic patterns for people that are outside. That's ultimately what this boils down to. Also, I would like to say that I walked over at that property the other day and walked around, and there are bigger issues too to look at. An access road that runs that way, it's tight, very tight. And not only that, when my wife and I moved here, what we liked was the feel, the community, the people that are here, the trees, the nature, the places to walk. I'm walking over there, and there's two little boys fishing. Nice warm weekend. I asked them if they caught anything, and obviously they said no, but they were having fun. Well, that will go away, road. Also, I noticed that when we were speaking about putting that there are stormwater conditions to put in. There's environmental concerns. There's a lot of things to be put in here. And I can promise you from dealing with developers over the years that whatever he would like to come out of the traffic study ultimately will come out of the traffic study that's paid by his company. If you want to have a traffic study that is realistic, it's going to have to be paid for by the community. It's going to have to be driven and understood, because most developers, like I said, they want to eat that elephant one bite at a time. And no matter what they say, they have other plans. And I would have to say, I'm walking over there the other day, and I noticed that it looks like the curb's already cut out for an entrance in it. And that just fits right along with that whole plan of it's eat the elephant one section at a time. And all I can say is, as a person who's living here, does it bother me now? No. Yes, the traffic noise is a little loud. And I certainly feel sometimes that my neighbors have a football field behind them with that parking lot lit up all night. So there are some disturbances, but at the same time, it is nice to have a medical facility. Somebody wants to get to it, but it does serve our people. The real question here is, does the community want to make the changes and take the benefit of allowing him to build 5 buildings? 2 buildings is what he asked for to the state. 2 buildings is what he built for. 5 buildings is what he's headed towards. And he wants to put that weight of building those 5 buildings on the community. And I do think that if that's the case, and this board decides that's what they ultimately want to do, that they have to really look at it hard. They have to make sure they got outside information to move forward. And they have to make sure that any of the costs that are going to be bared over the years do not fall on the community and the residents of the area. Thank
you. Next person. You got 5 minutes. How about it? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Tom List, and I live at 22 Ocean Parkway. As Mr. Gillis stated, I'm the one that's most impacted by this entire project. Just as a matter of thought, my wife and I never had a problem with medical campus. We're all getting old. It's a good idea to put medical services near us. But what I have a problem with is that I believe you are creating a traffic nightmare at the North Gate. I haven't heard one thing here. That has convinced me that the traffic issue will be solved at the North Gate. All I hear is you're going to take a whole lot more cars on the access road and dump them down onto a bridge that people are complaining about now is too busy. Not one thing. That's no solution. The access road. Bill Cordwell already said that people will learn that they can drive through Ocean Pines, come out Capitol Road, go in the medical campus in a right turn, come out on a right turn, and drive back through the pine. This access road is going to be a nightmare. You're going to have cars trying to get across Ocean Parkway. And you mentioned having a 4-stop area there. That would stop cars, on the bridge. They're getting out. first point. I haven't heard anything that's going to solve any traffic issue. Now, you mentioned one thing that I want to ask the State Highway Administration about. If the bridge were dualized going out, he had mentioned that 589 could be widened to accept that second left turn lane. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct, but there would have to be some additional work done on 589 to accept that additional left turn. In other words, if you have two left turns, it's great to have two left turns, but they got to have someplace to go. You can't put two left turns into a single lane. You'd have to have two lanes for them to turn into. I mean, you could eventually lose that lane, lose the one lane, but you'd have to have something.
Yeah, my question was the ramp that goes up onto 90 is fairly close.
But
Do
we
you have enough room?
Yes, we would have enough room to get them back toward that ramp.
Okay. How long would it take approval for that? Say, for instance, if he proposed to widen the bridge, how long would it take for you to widen 589? Because two left turn lanes on the bridge without widening 589
First off, we
doesn't
wouldn't
make any
widen
sense.
589. We would require him to widen 589.
So on the west side of 589 going south, there would be between the north gate and the shore stop, there would be an additional lane headed south. So the two lanes would be actually if the bridge were.
What I'm saying is, in what time frame?
Well, he
20
would be
years?
required to do that work. We wouldn't do it. I mean, he was required to do it. If we'd approve his plans, and he'd have to pay for it.
The approval a year, the construction a year. I mean, if all things said.
Well, you got to buy the land.
Well, I think the state
there's a
has
farm area.
just one other thing of the rules that we have to give up stuff. I've given the state highway 100 foot off the right of way. So the state highway, I believe, has jurisdiction on that. Right? I think there's enough right of way there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's enough right of way there to allow an additional lane under the scenario that Mr. List has proposed, by suggesting widening the bridge and putting two southbound turn lanes, just like Golf Course Road. It's not in West Ocean City, and lots of other places.
All right.
I would foresee that happening sometime in the future, regardless of what he did, because once we dualize 589, I would expect it would be, two lanes. There would be two lanes there to turn into.
I understand that, but that's what I was asking about time frame. So
Right. I can't give you
25, right? 2025 is when it's going to be widened.
If the Pines Association would like to see their bridge widened, that creates a need for two southbound lanes, which creates a need on 589 to widen it on the west side. So without the bridge widening, that requirement would not come up. But the state will do that eventually when they widen the 589, maybe in my lifetime.
All right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actually asking for the board to consider granting an easement now. Is that correct?
I'm asking for ideas, and one of the ideas is the right of way or an easement between your house and the existing pond. Yes.
Okay. Would you, when you actually go to make that proposal, is this going to be a written proposal? Is the bridge funding going to be included in that proposal?
I'm waiting for responses back from the board. So if you want it to be in writing, I can certainly do that. But this is the first time I've technically asked for this.
Right. And what I'm asking the board is, my gosh, you couldn't possibly consider any proposal unless it was in writing.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's no problem for me to put that in writing. That can be done pretty quickly.
Well, okay. So to the board, we'd never consider anything until you had a written proposal.
Technically, there is no motion in front of this board for us to put.
Right. All right. Since I am the one most affected, I probably have 50 to 100 questions, so I'm going to leave it at
only have 5 minutes.
that. I understand. I'm going to leave it
Call me
at
anytime.
Tom, if you forward the question, if you have a number of questions you didn't get answered, send them to me. I'll make sure they get routed to Mr. Gillis and the board so we can all see your questions and answers, because I think it's better that everyone see what they are.
Call me anytime. I'm very accessible.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Dina Lewis, and I live on Dockside Road, cul-de-sac, which is the back part of the property. We are the homes that, as you go out 580 North Bridge on 589. You now see all back that were not there before.
Please speak into the microphone.
I'm
You
sorry.
can
Right on your mic.
You have it.
Just keep it up.
Just hold it close. It comes.
Okay.
It'll come
Better?
up.
Better. Okay. We live on the backside of Gill's property. We are now exposed to 589. We can see the North Gate Bridge. We hear more traffic off of 589 because that whole area was wooded. Part of the reason why we bought back there, all of us, various times, built homes, was because it was a nice, quiet cul-de-sac in Ocean Pines. And I personally have been there since 1998, going on 18 years this year. And I know my neighbors have been there longer than that. Those woods have been there right along. And we used to enjoy watching wildlife across the road, etc. We didn't have the visibility of 589. We did know that at the end of Catholic Road, 589 is there. And our neighbor, Wayne Cathell, who lives in the back, that is his entrance to his home, which is off Catholic Road. Now, the meeting that you gentlemen spoke about earlier, 6 years ago, my husband, my neighbor's husband, and Mr. Cathell all attended as well. And at that time, it was discussion of be done, nice medical facility, which they all agreed was a nice thing to do other than, say, a wine store, hotel, something like that. But the understanding was, at that time, that there would be no rebuild of two things, and that they would be at the front of that complex. And I understand things change when zoning, et cetera, and stormwater, erosion control management and all that. However, they had always indicated there would be a buffer of natural trees already there. So our concerns were not really there because we figured we'd always have a buffer. Wayne Cathell has told me, though not in Ocean, he does have property abut. And he has told me that he was told there would still be a 6-foot buffer left. Well, around the holidays, we were unaware that it was going to happen, but around the holidays, all of the trees were taken down, little by little. And I originally did come to the Ocean Pines Association, and then they referred me to Public Works, who then referred me to the county to find out what was going on, because it was in our back door, and you were exposing us to what we consider a privacy issue, a security issue, because we're wide open. There is no buffer. You've taken the trees down the side of the road, everything. And it's your property. We respect that. We understand you can do what you want. But I guess as a neighborly kind of thing, we sort of would have liked to come. But anyway, so because of this, I went ahead and pursued conversations with the county to try to understand what was approved, what was not approved. And I have a site plan that was the erosion control management site plan that was approved. On that, though it is not approved for your buildings and your landscape, they do show that you are going to do 5 buildings. Now, I'm not sure where number 2 is because, the cancer building is advertised that number 2 is coming. But it doesn't look to us that there's any room up near that stormwater pond that's up there up front for you to build another building. And maybe there is. I'm not a builder, So, anyway, there's 3 buildings that are shown. Whether or not they ever get built or not, I don't know. But I guess one of my concerns is after listening to all of this today, we thought it was further along. That's why the trees came down. You did give an explanation as to why those trees came down. But you haven't even had a traffic study yet. So if by chance in the future that's not feasible, you've cleared the land anyway, but once again, it's your land. But it has left us wide open. So in the county, they tell us that with C1 commercial, residential kind of thing, there's wording, which we have, that indicates that there is a requirement for certain land. But I guess I'm trying to figure out, when you talk about 5 acres, what 5 acres are you talking about? Because the way I see that plan, there is a big stormwater pond right in front on the corner of Catholic Road, and then there's a road that you're trying to put in right next to that, which I'm not sure where that's going. Why you have to come down that far on Catholic to enter your facility, and where it goes from there. But in any case, then there's a building on the other side. We have parking lots all over the place.
Ma'am, you're at 5 minutes. You're over 5 minutes.
Okay, can I get one more point?
One more point.
Okay. I just wanted to mention also that the noise of your construction during the time that you're constructing, 4 or 5 years, who knows how long. And then you'll have lighting throughout, just like you have that one building lit up. You're going to have lights all over that place. So what we're trying to do is, before the landscaping is approved, is to try to get something worked out with you as well, PRMC or everyone, to make us all content that we could have some sort of a buffer besides perhaps street, nice privacy fence, sound barrier, something to give your complex good look, but give us back private.
Should I respond?
No, you can.
Let's go to the privacy fence on East Park Professional Center. We put a vinyl privacy fence between the neighbors and our project. Again, I please welcome anybody to drive over to. It's right on Route 50, 90,000 square feet.
Would that be anything like the one that is at Pennington State here on 589?
It could be. I mean, I'm open to suggestions on that. Some people like berms and landscaping. Some people like privacy fences. I'm open for anything that's that. I want to work with the neighbors.
That's what we're trying to get, because obviously we can't get the forest back, so we need to go.
Well, but to answer to your question as to where the 5 acres are, and this may, I can give this to you, and you can pass it around, but this blank area right here is land we've chosen to not develop, which is contiguous to Dawn Isle and some of the other neighborhoods.
We're down here.
Here's the 5 buildings that are shown on the site. So this is the 5 acres that you were asking about.
Right. So it's really over near Dawn.
Yes, but there is, on the landscaping plan, if you looked at this, there was a buffer. There will be a buffer that goes on the landscape.
But this is where we sort of like, there was also a road shown right in here. Now,
yes.
Why would there be a road there?
Fire marshal.
You can't go up further, so it's not draining down near our home.
I'm way open to suggestions, but as far as
we don't want to get details.
As far as a dead end loop, we can't have that.
That's my concern.
Right. It's a state. Yeah, I'd love to. I'm very accessible. Yes. Yeah. As far as to the quantity of buildings, again, I point to East Park Professional Center, which is fully developed at this point, 90,000 square feet, 10 acres of land. I know, I don't look at it as quantity of buildings, so counting buildings, I'm not doing that. What I am doing is counting square footage. So I know that on 20 acres of land, I could probably get, if I use that 5 acres, another 50,000 square foot of building. But I don't want to do that. My own market study calls for around 90,000 square foot, which is that drawing that shows you. I don't like the shape of some of those buildings, and we have paid particular attention to buffering, especially the Dawn Isle residents.
But what about the rock side?
Yeah, and that on the landscaping plan there is, and I'd be more than willing to consider something. But on the landscaping plan, there is I think there's a berm, there's a stormwater management pond, and I think there's some trees on that plan. But I'm more than happy to work with the neighborhood.
Yeah, okay, because I understand there is a landscaping improvement point, and that's why we're trying to get
we'll put it up if you like.
We'd like to have some input.
Yeah, that's fine. That's no problem. My guy on the site, Dana Illian, is about as easy with Mr. Captage to get work with.
Right, but he's telling him he's going to have something that he didn't get. In other words, they came and took trees down near his property too. And so he's now saying, I'm not getting what they told me I'm getting either.
There's 3 sides to every story,
yeah,
and
okay.
I know what I have gone through the approval process.
We're up to 10 minutes now. Come on,
okay,
we need to move along.
She took my time.
Everybody's going to have whoever wants the 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
She can have your 5 minutes. Thank you.
You have my 5
You already have a lady in the back that's just standing waiting.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
just is an important issue to us to get across.
We want to work with that.
Thank you. Thank you to the board members,
Closer, ma'am.
Thompson and Mr. Gillis.
Closer.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I live on Dawn Isle. I'm not a speaker, but I did want to
What's your
bring
name?
up
I
some
didn't hear.
points. Pardon?
Your name?
Nancy Clay. And one of the points of being in property value that they use Dawn Isle to hook up the water and sewer access to the medical buildings, and I don't know that anyone other than people in Dawn Isle may know of this, but 3 hours after it was completed, I had broken pipes in front of my house because the piping is old in Ocean Pines. Okay, so Worcester County came out to repair it, and we ended up with the debris in our bathrooms. And they turned the water on outside to let it run off, which is another issue. But just wanted to make that aware, so for future issues that you'll know of that. And I'm not sure that the water system Ocean Pines will actually support a medical center, small hospital, as you referenced in a newspaper article. But I've lived in Dawn Isle for 25 years, and I've had every hand gesture made to me trying to get out in the summertime to make a left turn. And I've had people, and it didn't matter what age, hang out the window and yell things at me. So it's already a problem, and I don't see where it's going to benefit anyone in Ocean Pines that goes in and out of the North Gate to move the problem from 589 into North Ocean Pines at that North Gate, because you're also increasing that problem because you're going to want a left turn into that medical center as well as a left turn out of that medical center. And in the original drawing, because I had attended a meeting that Mr. Gillis had early on, the road on that drawing goes partially through the List house, which would be right at Dawn Isle. So I asked him afterwards why he didn't move it out further, and he said it was regulations from the highway, how far it had to be in from 589. So this is something you definitely want to take into consideration if you even consider this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Short and succinct. Mr. Bob Palmer, you on the council?
Well, the good news is in medical offices, since I'm old enough to experience this, water usage has plummeted. I mean, none of the Maryland Plumbing Code is 3,000% off. The local codes are about 100% off. But the good news is the actual facts and statistics with water usage, it has plummeted. But yes, that is a public right-of-way. The county has jurisdiction on that, I believe, the Sanitary Commission. And yes, we are technically improving infrastructure for the community because in the ultimate plan, it continues the loop. So if one water supply is cut off in one location, it has another feed from another location. So we're actually completing that loop in our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Tell us your name and where you are.
My name is Al Pope. I live on 6th Dawn Isle, and that's directly behind the new building, which I can see all too well. I'd like to see some screening trees.
Screening trees?
Yeah. But anyway, number one, I'm pleased that the medical facility has gone there versus other choices. And number two, I think it's a bad idea. Of course, it's a bad idea for me to put a road in my backyard that would go right through the woods behind my house. But I think it's a bad idea for anyone using North Gate because we all know the problems at the North Gate now. The last thing we need is to take the problem moving from 589 Parkway. I do have a comment or a question for Mr. Drewer. Is not the right of way to widen 589 all on the Ocean Pines side?
I'm not sure. I'd be afraid to answer the question because I'm not sure.
The map that that was presented at the original meeting, when it wasn't a proposal, showed the right of way on the map and it was all on the Ocean Pine side of the road for the expansion of 589. I just want the general association members to realize that widening 589, the impact it'll have on the north gate, where it's very little room to stack up now, there'll be even less if it's dualized, or if it's wide for another left turn lane. That the consequences may not be what you think they're going to be.
You might be right, because when we did the study, we tried to put dual along there. What we tried to do is to stay away from existing development. In other words, if there was an open space on one side of the road, down on the other, we'd certainly move it over so we wouldn't have to buy it down. So it would make perfect sense to me that it would be on this side, but I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, at the north gate, I mean, you know, someone not knowledgeable about it would look at it and say, well, there's plenty of room in that cornfield, wide 589. But according to the map, that's not where the space is coming from. It's coming from the Ocean Pine side. Anyway, that's the end of my comment.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next.
My name is John Roeder, 186 Sand Hill Road. I'd like to primarily address my comments to the three most important people in the room, Donnie, Dallas, Michelle. And first thing, Dallas, please, the upcoming survey, do that in mid-July. Don't do it now. Everything would be so distorted and inaccurate that the value wouldn't be there. Do it when you've got flow, okay, and people here. So mid-July for that.
We can do one in July also.
Okay. What I'd like to do is suggest that there is an alternative, and I was so pleased, Donnie, when you came up here, and in just one of your comments, you said, well, maybe we can make a road over. That's exactly what I want to talk about. And I want to give you a picture. And I want you to say at the end of the story, oh my God, that'll work.
You're building your road.
I believe when we're talking things like this, it's so much an improvement to have a picture, because words, you guys share this, sir. I appreciate it. And what we're going to talk about is start this pencil in, because I did that last night, and I thought, you know, what the hell.
Is there a fee for this?
But the real truth comes down to, and it's been said several times, that alterations need to come out of mitigation. Now, mitigation's a funny thing. It gets distorted along the way of the path. So, Mr. Gillis, please listen carefully, but you already know all this. If there's mitigation following the approach to that third building in front of it, any mitigation that comes out of that, Mr. Gillis will have to pay for. Now, my view is, just like Mr. Tom Terry's view was, is that this is a state road problem, right? Now, if you look at my approach, on this drawing, penciled in part, the new part, that's what I want to talk about. The part that is in ink, I did that a long time ago, so that's sort of the existing way that street is out there right now. This combination of those two loops would handle all combinations coming from the south, all combinations coming from the north, going both in and out of that property. Now, some things that need to be considered. Automobiles only on that. You know, no big truck to get up on top of that, so you don't have to build it that huge. The elevation grade, yep, you guys got to figure that out. I don't know what the answer is. And the curvature, I don't know that either. You guys do. So, do you think that just might be something that you could handle? Now, keep in mind, Mr. Gillis is paying. Now, he said that. Did he say that?
All the mitigation and improvements, as Mr. Drewer said, is the responsibility of the developer.
Absolutely. Good story. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Well, what I'm trying to ask you, sir, is
Do I think this?
you think this is worth you looking at?
Well, you know, it's not up to me to look at it until it's presented by Mr. Gillis. Right. But what you have drawn here, okay, although it seems to work on paper, you start looking at ramps and elevations to get up so you can go over 589. It goes back so far it probably wouldn't fit on his property. That's just a quick, you know,
No, I understand that. That's why I brought it up front, because, you know, those are some thoughts and issues. And, you know, you could also put a sign on there, no skateboard.
Right. Well, see, the way we work is it all falls on Mr. Gillis' shoulders. In other words, if he wants to do this, he would present us a plan of how he would do it, and then we would study the plan and see if it would work. If it works, he's going to pay for it. He would go for it. But if it,
okay, well, very good.
It's all up to him to say, here it is, and it'll work.
All right.
I mean, design-wise.
The only thing I wanted to do, everybody said there ain't no possible way except going through Ocean Pines. I'm here to say there is another way. Very good.
Hi, good morning. I'm Mike Lasaka. I live on South Ocean Pines. Got to figure that one out. I cannot understand why you would be cutting down first growth timber and replacing it with small trees. That's all. If it's your property, you can do it right. But, you know, when I moved here, it was called Ocean Pines, and now it's going to be called Ocean Fair.
Is it fair? Well, I mean, you live in a house built by a developer or the road.
No, I live in a house built by a builder.
Right.
As a resident of Ocean Pines, Boise Cascade Company came in here in the 60s and created roadways, bridges, and did extensive work for the Pines. So from a person who remembers that when it was not the Pines, I can respectfully say you live in a house built by a developer that had to remove trees to create the infrastructure to create residence that you live in. So with that said, of the 22 acres of land that we have, our intention of what you see with the parts that we've cleared, with expensive mitigation to build trees other places, expensive, not cheap, not free. We are using our property rights to develop what we believe is an amenity to the Ocean Pines and a good economic engine for the Ocean Pines, and something that can be a part of the community. So, with that, when they widen a road, is there trees removed? When you build a house, are there trees removed? When you build a medical office building, there are trees removed. And I don't have the aerial survey that showed some of these properties that we bought as open space and not and farmed actually. But when we brought testimony the very, very first time to the planning board, Mr. Hand did bring those aerials. So I'm only going from recollection of that presentation. So yes, we've saved 6 acres of land. We've cleared roughly 12 acres of land. There's some other lands that's taken for stormwater management, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, as far as selection of species of trees, yes, we remove trees where we're going to replace them. Exactly.
Right, but we're replacing the first growth of trees, right?
We followed all the reforestation guidelines that the county and the state had.
When I built, I had to do, go to the state, the county, and everybody said X, Y, Z, you got to put a red band around the tree.
Yep. As you see signage that along the perimeter of the lands that we have saved, you'll you'll see signage that denies any activity beyond that point. And so with that said, we have followed all the criteria of reforestation. We've paid 2-for-1 to replant trees in other properties. It's not cheap. So in order for us to be able to run the water and sewer lines, to extend the loop of Ocean Pines, to create a two-way water system, in order to build the buildings, we have followed every rule that the state and the county has put on us, in addition to mitigating 2-for-1 forestation in other locations.
But from the conversations here, it seems like you haven't involved the community.
We what? I'm sorry.
You have not involved the community.
Every hearing we've been to has been a public hearing. In fact, I mean, it's advertised, signs are posted. I am 100% accessible every day. I'm in my office every day. So as far as neighborhood meetings, yes, that's what we're doing right here tonight. And we had one, I believe it was in 2007. I can't remember. Debbie or Tom, you may remember Mr. Pope. I don't know when that was. It was several years ago. But we engaged the community at that time. We had a public meeting. I forgot where it was, but yeah, we did. So yeah, I'm here tonight to have a public meeting, engage the community. That's exactly why we're here.
For 6 years, and we're still at the same place.
I don't understand that question. I've never not wanted to develop 75 to 100,000 square foot of medical office building on 22 acres of land, which should support around 200,000 square foot of medical office.
And you're saying it's for regional medical facility?
To
bring it closer to the community?
The Affordable Care Act, which measures health community and gives standards for the community to deliver health care services, guidelines suggest that you put healthcare services next to the people who are using it. And honestly, I think you'll all find that driving 30 miles west is going to be far more convenient to be here 2 minutes away.
It took me 4 months to get an appointment at that center.
I would hope not. I would hope not.
That's a question for us. It's probably not.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. If you're saying it's the community, are you the community? That's the question. And the last thing, could you take that hill of dirt down?
Yes.
It's like 30 feet now.
Yes, I mean, if we're talking about environmental issues, we have stabilized that area. We put the sediment fence around it, and our intention is to use that good topsoil. Topsoil's there when you don't want it and not there when you want it. But that's good topsoil that we're using for the landscaping for the remaining development. So yes, that hill definitely comes down. If you look at the drawings, this shows a building there, a small building there, but that's where the hill is. But that definitely will come down. It's
Okay,
not for
last
snowboarding.
time we can't take a vote, but we could give some instruction of what we want to do. Because this seems to continue on and on and on. What do we want to do next?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next.
I'm Barbara Coglin. I live at 16 Clubhouse Drive, and my questions are for the first is you say that you keep hearing every day about the problems. Now, I'm assuming you're referring to the traffic problems. Is that correct? And do you have any kind of statistics on what these issues are? Because you're right, Mr. Gillis. People who are here are people who are feeling negative about the road, and that's typical. But I would be curious to know what those people have to say. The second question I have is, what impact would Mr. Gillis's failure to get that road put in place have on the relationship that he has developed with DMRC?
Two questions. Okay. We don't have data on the concerns that are raised. I can tell you we met there this morning. What we do is we get feedback from staff that on a daily basis people are complaining about how to get in and out. So we haven't gotten to the point. We've had conversations with Mr. Gillis about should we be collecting data, but I do believe our folks on the ground there, and we speak with them, that it's a regular occurrence. As far as the second question, what impact, we've given pause at this point in many ways because we're trying to figure out what's going to happen. And I do think we're at somewhat of a fork in the road, and kind of looking in from the outside, obviously this has been going on for quite a while, 6 years, and we're back at this, but it's also given us pause because we're trying to create an environment that works well for everyone there. And the last thing we would want to do is make this worse by saying this is what also needs to happen from a building perspective, and then just compound a problem without a solution. So we're at a pause, and that's kind of some candid conversations we've had with Mr. Gillis, because we know from an ambulatory, from a non-hospital service perspective, there's other services that really would benefit this area. But at the same time, as I mentioned, going forward further, given the expense, but just as importantly, it's not a good experience. You know, that's very concerning to us, because the last thing we want to do is make a difficult situation worse. So at this point, until we have some clarity, either with folks here or with our developer partner, we have a pause. And it's sad. We don't want that, but at the same time, I think that serves everyone probably better than trying to cram stuff in there without a solution.
I am, ma'am. Let me try to take another shot at that also. I'm very, 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 very happy to bring to this community a highly thought of, well-respected, quality healthcare provider services. But just because PRMC is taking a pause doesn't mean that I'm taking a pause, which means that there are other users that could go on that property. I'm happy and proud to be able to sit here in this room today to say that we have this type of provider looking at this property. So yes, can the property be used for other purposes? Absolutely. Will I be seeking other users if they're not there? Absolutely. Will I be selling off some of this property as lots to other types of uses? Absolutely. I'm just happy that I'm able to sit here today in this room and deliver a high quality, low traffic user of land and a good neighbor.
And Mr. Gillis, if I could just add, I don't want my comments to provide any thought that we don't want to be there. When we look at the regions we're trying to serve, there's great folks. There's a population center for all the right reasons. We want to be there, but we want to be there when it works. We want to figure out we want a solution so that this works for everyone. And but northern Worcester County, this area, we picked out as a great place to have that close to home service. So we're looking for a solution. That's what we want to see.
One more thing. Has there been any thought given to having some sort of a working group with the community here?
Love to. Again, this is our first official request, literally.
So if there were people in the community that were willing to sit down with you, some of whom have expertise in this area, to talk about this issue, that would be something.
Absolutely. I've been having conversations with Bob for probably about a year, but I wanted to be able to show and be proud of the fact put on that property so that you see what we're doing. It's a high quality building. It's a high quality occupant. It's a good neighbor. It's a low water user. It's a low traffic user. So now I can sit here and say to you, this is what I want to do. And you can physically, I know a lot of people, including myself, want to feel, touch, and see. You feel, touch, and see. This is what we want to do.
So who would we be in touch with if we wanted to set something up?
Would you want to coordinate any type of...
Point of order here before we go too far. Mr. President, we do not officially have a presentation, a written document that is in fact an offer. We've had kind of a town meeting here today, which I think has been very valuable. At this point, I would like to propose that we move to an opportunity for Mr. Gillis to provide this board with a written document of what his proposal is. I would suggest in that proposal you include that community group as a way of going forward here. I'm not trying to cut off anybody from saying what they want to say, but at some point we need to move to where this board has something we can take action on. And this has become, which is okay with me, a bit of a town meeting as opposed to a board meeting, because there's nothing for us to take action on at this point.
Absolutely.
So I would suggest...
I was just going to do that. I have one more, gentlemen, this will be number 10, and then we're going to have... we're going to have the...
I'd like to make public comments.
We got other issues we have to carry. Sir, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I hate using microphones, but my name is Robert Stewart. I don't know if this is on, if you can hear me. I normally talk loud enough anyways. My wife and I bought at 9 Dawn Owl a little over a year ago. When we bought, Had I known that that facility and the extent to what was going to happen was going in there, I would not have bought. So for anybody in here to say that this does not impact our values, or blowing smoke, okay? It does. Whether it's our personal values or actual value on the market, it impacts us. So we are interested in knowing. And I think also that there's been a lack of transparency here. You're holding meetings, public meetings, but I work full time. I work a lot evenings and nights. I substitute teach at the high schools and I teach at the colleges, okay? I don't want to misrepresent myself, but I'm about 6 to maybe 7 months away from my doctorate degree in business. So I know and understand a lot about business. Where's the corporate social responsibility I keep hearing? Okay, and I get emotional, so I apologize, okay? Don't take it personal, it's the way I am. When I ask that, I'm looking at a couple factors here. On about 9:30, what was it, December 31st, New Year's, I was pulling out of the parking lot down by Home Depot, crossing a double highway, using a light. It's 2 lanes turning left. I was in the right-hand lane coming out. The guy beside me started out when our light changed. He stopped partway through. I didn't see the guy running the red light. I got slammed. My car was totaled. Accidents are going to happen with or without lights. Okay? How you fix the problem out here by the North Bridge is not my concern. I mean, it is, but I have other questions. You may have investigated the property at the South Gate, but we have an empty strip mall developing down there. That's going to impact all of our property values. Why did not something happen down there with any of this? Why don't your other 3 buildings go down there? Increase the value of that, make use of that. The place that you just tore the trees now, excuse me, like I said, I get emotional. Why don't we take that place where you pull all the trees out, convert that into a small community park for the neighborhood? There's social responsibility. Increase the values at the South Gate by using that property that's going empty. Have a divided medical center, which happens all over the country, okay? And you've increased value by putting another park in our location. We're concerned with the noise, the traffic. I mean, I live across on the backside. So my front of my house faces your medical complex. I've got a row of houses across from me and that thin line of trees now. I realize it's winter and the leaves are all off. I can see the lights coming through my front window. I hear the cars and traffic going by. I have increased traffic on my court that has nothing to do with my road. Okay? They don't live there. They come in, they drive around, they go back out, then they go out the gate. So there are values being affected. Okay? There are problems. I just ask that we consider, as you said, other options. I know you're an investor. Okay? I understand business, like I said. But was there ever an effort to look at that strip mall that now Rite Aid has moved out? That whole building is sitting empty. Who's doing what with it? Why couldn't that be converted? That would bring that value back up. Putting the little park down there by this other medical facility that you just built would increase that and satisfy a lot of us, because this is who you're trying to work. This is the social right here. Okay, it's not the person that lives down on the waterfront at the other in the middle of the complex here of Ocean Pines. Okay, they're not as concerned. Their value isn't being affected. Their lives aren't being affected. It's us here because we see it and deal with it and hear it every day and every night. Okay, so that's what I'm asking. Consider, even though you're at the point you are, consider other options for your other buildings. Whether a red light goes out there, traffic light or not, that's fine. I will make one suggestion though on that. I've almost had other accidents because since you put the cones up, what's happening is people, instead of coming up and turning right to go in, they continue straight. So when I'm coming up, I look, I see a car beside me, he's in there, I'm assuming they're going to turn and go into the complex. So I don't see anybody coming out the exit. That's clear. I start as I get past there and I try to follow the white markings, but as I see that I know there was nobody came on out, there's going to be nobody in there. Yet they're coming straight through there. So put a barrier of some type up, not plastic cones, trucks run over them left and right. Put some type of cement barrier or something else up there, a curb or something, so that people are forced to go in or come out. Okay? But those plastic cones, if I'd have been that emergency driver that day, I'd have ran over the cones when I went in there, instead of going down to miss the cones. Okay? So again, I apologize for my emotional feelings the way I am. Okay? I don't want to take up any more time, but my suggestions are make use of the facilities that are here. Give back to the community. You say you want to work with the community? Also, look at the options on which insurance coverages you provide. I can't get appointments in there. Retired Navy, TRICARE Prime. None of your doctors are in the system to accept my policies. So, that's all I have to say.
I think you brought up a lot of issues in regards to the social conscience. I mean, we try to work with the neighbor. We had a neighborhood meeting, and I didn't have anything else to tell the neighbor, honestly. But as far as dedicating land to the community, I am more than willing to deed over that 6 acres of land to Ocean Pine. But I'll guarantee you that someone will complain that people are walking through their properties to get to that public park. So the best idea that we can come up with, and again, following the rules and the regulatory process of the reforestation process, is to leave it in a dedicated buffer natural state.
Well, I'm not talking about the acreage that you want to leave as a dedicated buffered state. I'm talking about instead of just putting any more buildings there, moving the buildings down to that empty strip mall.
Responding to that question, and as a person who had concepts to save governmental spending of the old mall in Salisbury, I mean, I saw a whole transition there. We tried to convert that to other uses. I know you probably may not be familiar with next to the Wycombe Civic Center. No retailer will go in there because the model doesn't work. And what I'm suggesting to you is whether it's the Pine Plaza Shopping Center or whether it's the shopping center that you're referring to, that model doesn't work. The geometry of that shape doesn't work. So,
in all due respect, and I'm sorry to step in, but we've been here a long time, Mr. President. Maybe one more speaker, and then we've got work to do.
Now, wait.
I don't think it's one more speaker. I think every association member has the right to speak publicly.
Joe, you're out.
Pat, really, this issue is important to these folks, and I think they should be heard. In all fairness to everyone, I mean, you've allowed 10, 11, 12 speakers speak up. There may be 5 or 6 left, and they deserve to be heard. And they deserve to be heard. Do you agree with that?
I deserve the opportunity. Without a keep.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Gentlemen, there's a lady in back of you.
That's okay.
You got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Doris. Joe Reynolds, Watertown Road. Before I say what I was going to say initially, let me also point out and remind people in this room that the Ocean Pines Association had an opportunity to buy that property. We sent our attorney, Joseph Moore, to an auction. I attended. It was right on the property. And at that point, Mr. Moore stopped bidding. Mr. Gillis, or whoever eventually bought it, outbid us. We did not want it bad enough. We could own that property today. And quite frankly, with the impetus and the feelings we have today, I think that the people in our 8,440 association members probably would have paid more than Mr. Gills paid for it if we had gumption to do it. Now let me say, I think Cheryl Jacobs hit the nail right on the head in asking or talking about the right question is why did you do that out there, knowing the problems? It was a bad idea from conception, but it was a money maker. People do these things for money, let's face it. Forget all the altruistic stuff. People are in business to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. What this country's about. But we tend to think in the day. We think now. Gil's thinking in the future. These hospital people are thinking in the future. This board needs to think in the future. If you think we have a problem out there now, think about this. The storage treatment plant in Ocean Pines that was supposed to be initially just for Ocean Pines currently has maybe 3,000 to 4,000 excess EDUs. 3,000 to 4,000 more homes can be hooked up. Worcester County bought a Purdue plant, I believe it was, processing plant that will be used to process storage up north of here. Maybe another 10,000 connections. Anybody that thinks that we're going to stay the way we are, look at that empty land west on 589, north, whatever. I guess what is that?
It's hard to tell. I feel it's north.
Is that north?
I feel it's north.
North, toward 113. All that open land is going to have homes on it. Any open land you see up through that area is potentially, over time, going to be developed into homes or commercial property. These folks are looking for business from all those things in the future. We need to think about the future. And those people, when they come down here to this medical center, where they're going to be looking for this business, are going to be coming south on 589. And how are they going to get into that medical center? Those thousands of homes that are going to be built. They're going to make a left turn into the north gate. We need to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We have a lady in the back in yellow.
Doris Lloyd. Mr. Gillis.
Where are you from?
Wood Duck.
Where do you live?
Wood Duck. Way away from the north gate.
Right.
But I'm concerned about Ocean Pines. Mr. Gillis gave us a very nice presentation. But we are close enough to that building that we can get there without much trouble. And we also have Atlantic General that we go to. It's very sad that our board cannot politely say we don't want any of these suggestions. And I think the people of Ocean Pines who really own that land should say something and watch how our board votes for any of this. I think we should say no now and stop all this nonsense. Thank you.
Remember this board sitting here now, not you.
No. I'm well aware of that.
Good. So he's bringing it to us, and we're politely listening.
And you can politely say no.
We can. We're not going to do that here. Mr. Saway. By the way, you're number 13. I didn't want you to know that.
I'm Bill Zawacki, 111 Tampa. First, let me say, my doctor is in your building. Was my doctor previously when he was down the road where I had to make a left turn across 589 to get to his office. Oh, but I could make a right turn, come home. I've been to the building there, the new one, many times. I come out of the south gate, I go into your facility, I go out to the north, and I come back around Ocean Parkway to get home. And that's what most people from Ocean Pines are going to do. If they're on the north side, they're going to come around to the south, go in there, and go back home out to the north. What's being proposed is not for Ocean Pines. It's for others outside of Ocean Pines. Frankly, I think your problem is sitting over there with the State Highway Department. They're the ones who should be solving your problem, not just letting it ride. To say that you've got a right turn in and right turn out only because a traffic study or a traffic planning was done saying that it needed to be dualized with no possible date for that happening, to me is just totally ridiculous. They're going to limit you because you happen to be the latest one to come along. Right across the street is a medical facility for AGH, along with a bank and a shortstop gas station. They can make left turns out, left turns in. Down the road, there's a 7-Eleven. They make left turns in and out. Then there's the
Pavilion.
The McDonald's. That's probably the biggest traffic left turn in and out along that whole stretch of road. But because you're the last one, and they've already done their little study, you get restricted. Well, I shouldn't say just you, because Pennington Commons was also restricted, which is another one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the fact that you're being restricted, and at the same time, they cannot tell you when or even if that road will ever be dualized, to me is totally ridiculous. And I think there's where you need to be fighting, even if you have to go to court or somewhere else to do it. One last quickie, I'd like to ask Mr. Gillis, how did you get stone facing on your building?
Stone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what do you mean how we get stone facing?
We couldn't get it.
We have a lady in the back. Yeah, want some more?
You can tell I'm not used to speaking in a microphone. I'm Debbie This, and I live on the corner of Dorm Isle and 22 Ocean Parkway. You've spoken. I was not going to speak, but after hearing everything today, I feel like I need to say one thing. Frankly, Mr. Kumar, I doubt sincerely your sincerity. Doubt your sincerity proceedings today. This is how I feel. Every time he mentioned, if he doesn't get his way, lesser things are to come.
Right.
So maybe he needs a red light district. maybe he means restaurants. I don't know what. I love the idea of the medical center. I love the idea of PRMC coming. My heart is with you, and I hope things work out for everybody. Sorry, I don't mean to take it emotionally. I really didn't do that, but I'm pretty good at reading body language after 30 years in elementary school teacher. I can see through your smiles. I can see through your posturing. Frankly, sir, I doubt your sincerity.
I will take that personally, and I will say to you that to another gentleman's comment, I'm in business to make a profit. So let's get that right on the table right now. I'm a builder for commercial and non-residential single-family homes. I build everything but that. As a developer, I only do medical offices, but I'm not going to sit in with real estate holding it when I can't use it. So I will, this is not a threat. I'm just reporting the information. If I can't build what I do, medical offices, then I will ask somebody to look at another use. I'm not going to be doing that. I might build, so as far as sincerity, I'm being absolutely transparent and honest. I build and develop medical offices, period. I don't develop much other properties. We're doing a Johnny Janosic up in Camden, Delaware, but that's it. But as far as being a developer, I've got 1.5 million square feet of medical offices that I've done. So as far as taking my sincerity to the table today, I can sit here to say I am in this to make a profit. I develop medical offices. I believe I have a great plan for this piece of property that will be an amenity to this community, and you'll use it. What I'm here to explore today, with all sincerity, is options and ideas, which include a traffic light for this property, a southbound left-hand turn lane into this property, widening the bridge to this property, widening the road at Ocean Parkway for this property, annexation for the property. The only way I know to solve problems is to put the issues on the table. Those are the issues that I can come up with. And I'm asking this community, without being insulted, to help me with that solution. And I would appreciate that your respect of my sincerity, because I will tell you right now that if I can't develop medical offices, I will try to sell it to somebody else. That's plain and simple. I'm not trying to misrepresent anything.
Gentlemen, you have a...
My name is Lou Firm here. Okay, what I'm coming here to say is this gentleman has a problem. He's bullied his way into this community, I would say. But he's laying the problem on our laps. He wants us to figure out how he can make money. Okay, I have no problem with that. But let's just go with the idea that this gentleman over here said that when they start out small, they get that, and they get into something else, and they get something else, and eventually it's going to be done. It's going to be done. I'm resolved to myself that this is going to be passed eventually. Something's going to happen. If he doesn't sell it to somebody else, he's going to develop himself. Well, the doctors and medical areas is beneficial to us here, okay? But let's think to the future with the idea that we're concerned about the bridge, okay? They want to, you got to make it bigger or whatever. Well, let him help us develop that bridge. We have a lot of frontage there. How about if we do away with the bridge? I understand everybody likes to look at the bridge and all that stuff. Well, you can take the bridge down and put the face up again down the road. Okay. Fill in the ponds. Okay. It's a new canvas. It's a bigger area. I would say there must be a better way of getting his traffic out and our traffic. And if we were to do that, put a road in instead of a bridge, it'll be much easier to maintain. You can make it as wide as you want. It gives you more room to make junk handle or another exit farther down towards the north end side. It gives you a better thing to look at. And it may not impact the community as much as it is right now. And I understand the idea that you're going to be going around the south and coming up here in Cawthorn, come up. Well, now you're creating a lot of traffic all the way out towards the bay that we've never had before. That's not going to help at all. You want these people that are coming here to get out of our community as fast as possible. We want them in, we want them out. Well, we also want to get out and get in too. But the bottleneck is that bridge. We've got to open that up. We've talked about it all the time. This way we don't have to maintain the bridge. We're looking at the South Gate. There's no fancy thing up there saying come to Ocean Pines. Okay, there's nothing unique up there. Well, do we need it up here? I just think the idea of having that bridge creates more problems than the actual beauty of that area. And we'll get rid of the geese too, if you want to. All right? And you can still put a little pond up there as you fill it in, and you can still have a little fishing. But make it within the road system.
Thank you.
There was when we met the last time, there was some opposition to changing or widening or replacing the bridge. Just an FYI.
Any other?
Okay. I wasn't going to walk to the back. Hi, my name is Michelle Stewart. I live at 9 Dawn Isle. Yes, daughter and my husband. Just some observations, I guess, I think maybe in order, since I'm going to looks like a closing speaker from the public, from the community. You talk about transparency. I appreciate that. I think transparency is a must. But as a new homeowner here to Ocean Pines, our experience is the exact opposite. We're not experiencing the results of the transparency. Possibly for these folks that are so devastated with the loss of privacy, the loss of valuation to their properties, possibly a greater way to have achieved some unity would have been to really put into place the vehicle of transparency, and you could have personally met with these folks and said, this is our plan, and show them what your plans are, and have done that for them. That could have alleviated a lot of the tension and a lot of the conflict that's going on. Same thing for us that live on Dawn Island, right across Bramblewood. They're going to be affected as well. The immediate homes along Ocean Parkway, they're going to be affected. Their valuation, there's no two ways about it. You talk about business wanting to make profits, absolutely. But as homeowners, our profit is valuation of our properties. So we should not be expected to bear the burden for others to make their profitability. So we need to figure out a way to work as a community. And by doing that, you need to meet with the homeowners that are going to be most greatly affected and ask them and chat with them about coming up with those solutions. I think you would get more cooperation from the community. And we are not opposed, those of us that are being directly affected, most immediately affected, we're not opposed to having the medical centers there. As my husband said, we as retired military, we use TRICARE Prime. We can't use your doctors unless we want to go with regular Prime Plus and pay 20% for every visit, 20% for all of our medical. We've served our countries, and we pay for TRICARE Prime, and we would love to have your doctors part of that system. So that might be something to benefit your profitability by getting your doctors to look into the process. I think that would increase your profitability. So we're not opposed to having the medical. I think that needs to be really clear from those of us that own properties right here. We are not opposed to you creating the medical complex in there. It looks nice. It's not offensive to look at. From a bigger picture, and for the community, not just Ocean Pines, but for Worcester County, it's not offensive to look at. And so I appreciate that. What we're concerned about is the impacts that that's going to have on just Ocean Pines, and the expectation that Ocean Pines residents and as a community should bear the burden of making that more accessible for the general public. As it stands right now, the left in, left out, the right in, right out rather, is working. There is some inconveniences for those of us that live right on that gate, but we cannot correlate what's happening at the south gate and what works at the south gate that it's going to work at the north gate. It's not, because you have residents right there. Whereas in the south gate, you don't have residents sitting there. So we have to look at it from a different perspective in order to come up with a resolution. So I'm not asking any questions, just making some observations and possibly really putting into place true transparency and really working with the community, not just with the board. I think you need to win over the folks that live over here and the folks that live over here if you really want to come up with a feasible, viable resolution to the greater problem.
When we had a neighborhood meeting, some of the folks that are in this room today.
You need to get our names and our numbers and our addresses, and you need to contact us directly.
I can't do that to 8,000 residents.
We're not asking you to. We're saying that the people that are being directly.
May I respond to your question?
Right. I didn't ask a question. I was just posing out there.
In regards to transparency, we had a community meeting, and one of the reasons we're here today is a community meeting. That is exactly why we're here today. But as far as the process goes, I have to pay for advertising. I have to post signs. I have to go through a whole process, a public process, to do everything that's there. And finishing that answer, that response, there's a sign on the property, that's a telephone number. I get in the office about 6:45 every morning. There's nothing to prevent you. If you have any questions, I don't have any screening of any phone calls. You can call me anytime you like. I'm in there 5 days a week. I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. Please feel free.
And we appreciate that comment.
We're having a neighborhood meeting.
I guess the point is that my husband and I lived here 15 months. You never contacted us. No, we were not truly aware. Has there been really a public meeting in the last 15 months?
There's many types of public meetings.
Excuse me, I am speaking now. I'm trying to give you the same respect. Our neighbor back here, he just bought a home 3 months ago. He had no clue whatsoever that the prospect of having the road run through his backyard, literally, is going to happen. Would he have spent the kind of, $250,000 to buy a property that feasibly could have a road running behind it? So for you to say, and I appreciate that you're saying you've had public meetings, but you have not had public meetings with those that are being affected the most. And I'm saying to you that you may have done that, but it hasn't obviously been effective.
How did you know about today's meeting?
It hasn't been effective.
How did you know about today's meeting?
Because my neighbor came to
And how did he know about it?
It was in the comments.
Ma'am, if I can interrupt,
I'm just trying to help bring some resolutions so we work together in a positive environment.
We haven't approved anything, ma'am.
And I appreciate that.
We have not.
I understand that. All I'm saying is that we are asking if we really want to find a viable, workable resolution so all parties concerned, and keeping in mind that as an association, We have a priority to homeowners to keep our valuation
Well,
and our environment positive, that we have positive communication and we have opportunities to do that.
We've had 16 people give their opinions today for
Great.
3 hours, and I think we're about done. Quite frankly, does anybody else wants to say anything before we close?
I'm not sure if you really understood my point, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you.
I think you're aware of this meeting today because it was advertised, which is the whole reason why we're here. The whole reason why we're here today, in my opinion, is to ask for your opinion and helpful thoughts and thought process to solve a concern of patients that we've seen. So they can be many different ideas, and I think I'll try to just inventory them real quick. One could be widening the bridge to allow more access. The other, at my expense, with the idea of access to Ocean Parkway, that would stop the choking at that intersection. Another idea is annexation. There's many, many ideas, but I'm not going to please everybody. My mom and dad would always say you can please some of the people. Sometimes you can't please all the people all the time. That being said, there's a whole bunch of different solutions. One would be, how would anybody, I would ask for participation on this, if I could get everybody's comments, a traffic light on 589. Would that work? That takes away the bridge widening, it takes away the access road to Ocean Parkway. But is there any thoughts on that? I mean, does anybody like that idea?
Yeah,
A traffic light at the facility, for the facility, and the ones on the west side at 589. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? I'm just out here for ideas, folks.
Study the impact of that.
Is there any comments on that?
Okay.
I have one quick question for Donnie left the room, so Dallas, I guess it's on you.
That's why you said
Is it entirely the state that is prohibiting the ability, like we do everywhere else on 589, it seems, to be able to make turns in either direction through a middle turn lane? I mean, I don't understand why people traveling south, we don't have one of those turn lanes so that they can make a left-hand turn into the facility. That seems like the simplest solution to the whole problem.
Yes, that question is yes. It was the state's direction, right in, right out.
And what would it take to get the state to change their mind about that?
We would like to see the traffic study first to make that assertion.
So that's a real possibility.
At this point, I've not been told that anything's off the table. As far as the access point, it's full access, but not right in, right out. But again, when that was developed, there was not a traffic study in place yet. We need a traffic study to figure out, okay, can we make full access work?
Yeah, because we certainly have plenty of traffic just south of there going into all of the commercial establishments, and people are able to make left-hand turns.
That's the safest way, but they end. Yes.
That's it.
I left it at the right time.
If you go a quarter mile north of the North Bridge and look at the pavilions where we have physical therapy units, and I mean, I noticed, I'm making a left turn, no prohibition on from leaving there. It's a little hairy, but you can, it's illegal, so.
Mr. President, this is exactly the beginning. My very first question was, what has happened over the 6 years to try to come up with a different solution? And I think we've heard a lot of answers here, a lot of compassion. I think there are solutions here that are very simple. You need help getting simple answers put in place. I think we as an organization, as a community, stand up with you and say, look, this is the solution to our problem here, and we'd be more than happy to help go after that. Again, that's the reason I raised the issue, that we're seeing exactly the same thing we saw 6 years ago. And I agree with Cheryl. It appears to me that their left turn lane or a light allowed by the state would allow this solution to be happen. And I understand the state's position where they say, look, I've got to have it's like us. We have to have some kind of written proposal to act on. They need so I think there's an opportunity here to team up with a solution that isn't a road and go to our state and say, and I'm not attacking the gentleman who's behind me, he's doing his job. I think we need to find a way to come together with a solution that's much less dramatic than trying to build a road. And I think those answers are there. So I would suggest that maybe that's the direction that this board, someone wants us to take action here today. I think as a board, Mr. President, we can, by acclamation or agreement, kind of say to Mr. Gillis, go forth and come up with a solution that's different than this and bring back that solution for us to see it. And I think that's a way for this thing to move forward. Because I don't want this thing to end where it is right now, because we won't get anywhere. So I think at this point, I don't know if I make a motion or does everybody sitting here from the board agree that that's a reasonable next step?
Well, I think it was already.
He has to come back to
Yeah, he's got to come back to us with a solution.
Yeah, I mean, that's already been said that you're supposed to give us something in black and white on a piece of paper.
Yes.
One clarification in my mind: when we talk about a traffic light, we're talking about a light. Is that correct? You're going to put a light at your ingress and egress, and there's going to be another light at the bridge. Is that correct?
What I'm suggesting or asking for public comment on and input from the neighborhoods is there's a traffic light at the Route 90 bridge. There's a traffic light at the North Gate. I think, and if I'm misspeaking, I apologize. I'm sincerely trying to report the right information. I believe that in today's laws, you're allowed to have a traffic light in that travel distance between two lights. Technically. That's an undivided roadway. So when the roadway is divided, the question that the folks from State Highway are going to say, you're going to deny access. And Donnie's absolutely right. A property owner is going to feel damaged, whether that's Shorestop or AGH or the bank or ourselves or whomever. And they're going to want their entitlement to be compensation. I, for one, don't know how that would work in a divided highway in the event it ever happens in my lifetime. But today, technically, I think the rules would allow a traffic light with lots of infrastructure changes, whether it's the northbound decel lane from, I guess it's an XL lane from 90, the culvert that goes across there. Yeah. But I think technically that could happen. Or another solution might be as you're traveling south on Route 589, and you're in front of if you're traveling south and you want to turn left into the project, we have what we call a pork chop, and that's cutting the pork chop in half and allowing a left-hand turn lane in. And as Mr. Drewer even said to this board today, that might be tonight, I don't know, that you could probably prove that a full tilt access worked there. The question as a taxpayer, all of us as a taxpayer here, and I'm saying this in all sincerity, that's a cost the taxpayers will have to pay for at some future date, whether that be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or 50 years from now.
One more comment from the public.
Is it on?
Yeah. It is.
Okay. I'm Bickerstaff. I live at 29 Wood Duck, so I'm a neighbor of Doris Dave Boyd. So I am not directly affected by this activity that's going on. And I say affected rather than impacted, because the word impact is a noun, usually. The only time you use it as a verb is when you're talking about bowels blocked up. And I don't think we need that as a solution to this problem. I think the smartest thing this board could do would be to recruit residents from the Pines to serve as a task force to work with Mr. Gillis to identify the solution going forward. Thank you.
Could I ask Mr. Gillis one short
Yes,
question?
ma'am.
Just which building are we building next? Is there going to be a building on lot 2, or are you moving to lot?
There was confusion with the lot numbers, but I can point to it. Because they did the test borings. The building was
That's what
yes.
you're actually down to maybe 4 buildings instead of 5 as a total.
I'm sorry.
Down to 4 buildings instead of 5 then as a total.
Well, we're getting hung up in the quantity of buildings. Buildings can be 5,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet. The one we did in Millsboro was 50,000 feet. Personally, I would rather go up and have more open space, but the law doesn't allow me to do that. The maximum I can do is sprinkling 20,000 or square foot less buildings. Personally, please go to the Planning and Zoning Commission with me. I would love to build a larger one building as opposed to all these sprinkling. It's much more efficient, but I can't do that under the current.
And that's something a task force could look into.
Thank you.
All right, we can appoint a task force. I think it has to be a general acclamation of the board to continue. We want this problem to be solved, obviously. And we need to appoint a task force of concerned citizens that we will report to the board, and we will continue this discussion. We don't want to let it go, as Tom said, and let it drift for another 6 years. I agree. I think what we ought to do in this case would be to have you email us, either myself or Bob Thompson, as to your interest in being involved in the task force. And then we will try to form it from there. But I think for now, we've had a good vetting of people. Some people were emotional and some people were very logical in their thought process, which I think is good. And I think we can come up with a solution that will satisfy all of us, or most of us anyway. So I would suggest that. Yes.
I honestly am saying thank you for your input. I know some people may not believe me when I say that, but I want to do something that works and makes profit.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Move to adjourn, huh?
Martin, thank you, Bob. We have another issue up there, which is after this one, and we'll discuss it whether we're going to continue that.
Oh, I see.
Thank you, guys. You had fun?
I'd like to call for a nature break.
No. Nice muck boots. We needed them this morning. Yes, sir.
Thank you. How much are you on tonight?
I know what. I'm on these.
Oh, okay.